American University. Attached to my writing testimony is a deck that provides a snapshot of our current scan and assessment of UConn's readiness for AAU membership. I would like to start my testimony today by sharing some of the exciting things happening at UConn around our research enterprise. Our dedication to research remains a cornerstone of our strength. We have successfully submitted major grants, including 70 million smart AI initiatives to the Department of Commerce, with 150 industrial and academic partners for Connecticut to be a leading hub in AI manufacturing. In collaboration with Yale, we are pursuing what would be the largest grant in the history of university, Connecticut Quantum Engine, totaling 160 million, and PI, Pamir Alpe, is with me today. Our goal is to grow our research portfolio to 500 million and currently is 368 million. Our strategic vision is aligned with state and federal priorities, particularly in creating the industry of the future. With the considerable support of the state of Connecticut, our campus in Storrs, the regionals, and UConn Health in Farmington have transformed into hubs for important research and innovation. We also have partnered heavily with industry in improving our research infrastructure. Expansion has led to state-of-the-art classroom and laboratories. UConn economic impact is valued at $8.5 billion. We support nearly 50,000 jobs across Connecticut, generating billions in labor income and $429 million in state revenue. Our research enterprise is a significant contribution to the economic impact, and we give back to our state throughout workforce growth, innovation, and business proliferation. In addition, research at UConn directly supports national security, insurance, fintech, biotech, health sector, all critical components of the state's economy. For 125 years, the Association of American Universities has been the U.S. most prestigious academic organization supporting the goal and needs of the country's premier colleges and universities. Today, there are 71 member institutions from the United States and Canada. Many of our peer institutions, Stony Brook University, University of Virginia, UNC Chapel Hill, Penn State, Rutgers University, University of Arizona, University of Maryland are AU members, reflecting the investment in research, innovation, and education. These universities are responsible for the millions of jobs, boost economies of all levels, and address challenges in the areas of healthcare and clean energy that are most pressing to our society. Membership is not automatic. There is no process to apply. Institutions are invited to become members. When considering members, the organizations take many factors into account, especially quantitative indicators that demonstrate a university research and educational success. These indicators include prestigious awards for faculty, research expenditure, publications, and citations. AU membership will help launch UConn's future, increasing our ability to attract preeminent researchers and students nationally and globally, and maximize our infrastructure. All this will translate into more research, development, technology, translation, innovation, entrepreneurship, strong economic output for the state, more jobs, new technologies, and boost local economies. This will require continued investment from the state, especially investing in recruitment of innovation faculty. UConn's strong collaboration with the General Assembly, the Governor's Office, state agencies, and our congressional delegations have helped fund facilities where important discoveries are made, but not enough investment in recruiting top faculty. Now we need more of a very best and innovative scientists and other researchers to become members of our esteemed faculty. Drawing more of these world-class minds to Connecticut will increase the likelihood of innovation to become an AU member and member of Power 4 Athletic Conference. All Big Ten conferences schools are AU members. Like other public research universities across the nations, UConn is at a critical junction in its history. Federal support for research is upheaval. While we are working closely with our colleagues to fight for every dollar, we need to leverage the strength of UConn and the entire state to ensure we are permanent premier research institution. And together with Yale, we continue to economic growth and new jobs creation. Yukon, and by extension, the state will benefit from AAUP membership, and with your support of the bill, we look forward to developing an action plan in any legislative proposal to assist us in drawing the attention of AU leadership. We do ask for a few minor technical challenges to the bill as drafted, and they are included in my testimony. Thank you for your leadership. We are happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, President Merrick, very much for your testimony. And I have a couple of questions, but I did just want to also point out to my colleagues here that you're testifying on House Bill 7095, and your testimony, which you just abbreviated very kindly for us, is in the binder, in our binders under that tab, and it's labeled Yukon. And you have a PowerPoint presentation. I'm going to start there. I appreciate that, you know, sort of just because of the, we're trying to expedite our hearing as best we can with 50 or so people scheduled to testify today. But I did want to ask you if there were any metrics that are in the PowerPoint that you think are particularly important to bring to our attention. You know, these are the metrics that AAU or other organizations use to assess the worthiness, I guess, of an institution for membership. And I wanted to ask you if there's anything in your slide deck that you wanted to bring to our particular attention.
Yeah, I would like to ask my Vice President for Research, Pamir Alpay, to respond to that.
Thank you. Thank you, President Merrick. Thank you. This is, you went through a very detailed study, as you will see in that PowerPoint presentation. And one of the things that I'd like to point out that if by some magic touch, we would be inserted into the AAU today, we would not stick out. And there's a lot of data that our team has painstakingly put together that will support that idea. We wouldn't, to get us in a better position, there are certain things that the president mentioned that we should be thinking about, and that's hiring right faculty in the right fields that will help us with our research expenditures, with publications, with citations, and the awards that they gather, and also through whom we will get better rankings and better recognition. That's one factor. Getting senior faculty, leaders in their fields to UConn should be one priority. The other priority is summarized in the last slide there. We need to work with the state and the industry around us to get direct funding for research and development that will benefit the state and the companies around us. Those are two important metrics that go into the NSF research expenditure tables published every year. And that's an important metric that we
I would like if you can look the slide number 10. And you will see the honor award per faculty members. So California Institute of Technology for 9.9 awards. We have 1.07. So this is where more experience and full professors and faculties that we are planning to recruit globally who have large number of citations and grants can significantly help us with the ranking.
Thank you. Let me just relay just a really quick anecdote, because this is how I first became aware of the AAU in the first place. I was actually lined up to march in a parade, celebrate Mansfield Day in Mansfield. And at that time, the president was Susan Herbst. President Herbst and I struck up a conversation about athletic conference realignment, which was a very perplexing process in and of itself, and I was lamenting, UConn's position in the world at the point in terms of athletic conferences, and I said something to the effect of, well, I think I might have used some inappropriate language, but we shouldn't only aspire to join the ACC. We should maybe aspire to join the Big Ten. And her response to me was, that would be great, but they won't have us. And that the reason why they wouldn't have us is because every member of the Big Ten Athletic Conference is a member of the AAU. It's interesting that there would be an athletic conference that would be built around academic and research prowess. And these are all big state universities that stretch from the Northeast to the Midwest. And I began to realize, oh, we are having the wrong conversation, aren't we? Let's talk about the AAU. And she gave me, as we marched down Main Street in Mansfield, a sort of primer on AAU membership. And that stuck with me for a long time. And more recently, I think it was about a year ago, I think I sat with you, Dr. Alpay, and others about where we were in comparison to other AAU universities around the country, because there have been some recent additions, and I felt like you kind of certainly in that league, quote unquote, academically and research wise. And so I think it's important for the state, important for UConn, important for the executive branch and the legislative branch to have a common goal. And I'd like for this to be our stretch goal for UConn, for us to consider it. And that's my primary reason for sort of advancing this. I was hoping that you could tell us what other states might have done to help universities that have more recently successfully gained admission to the AAU, and what their state's relationship was to those universities and what they might have done to help advance their own applications and successful admission to the AAU.
Yeah, we look all of those, and most recent one are University of Miami, that is private university, but receives also significant support from the Florida state in order to become AAU institution. So it's even in private university. So I would like to ask our provost and Daliva to look to cases and the university, actually Florida state investment in AI and investment in top hiring, as well as Texas state.
Happy to do so. Thank you, President Merrick. So I think Texas and Florida are some of our best examples of states that are investing strategically in higher education to promote membership in elite organizations like the AAU. So Florida has the Preeminent State Research Universities program, and they will provide extra state funding to universities that reach certain benchmarks around research and student success. And President Merrick mentioned the University of South Florida, which recently gained membership in AAU and benefited directly from this program. Similarly, Texas is doing the same thing. They've established the Texas University Fund. That was just 2 years ago. And again, it's strategically designated to benefit certain public universities to help them raise their research profile. And that's a $3.9 billion endowment that is supporting these universities. Thank you.
And it's not only that, when they establish those programs, they come after our best faculty. And I just had conversation with our faculty yesterday, and I begged him not to go to Texas. And I promised him, I said, I'm testifying tomorrow. We are doing something. We are a great state. You had been here for 20 years. Please stay. Please give us a chance.
And not to overlook the obvious. I mean, could you explain to the committee and for the record what the value of additional research dollars being expended at the University of Connecticut is to UConn and to my region of the state and to the state as a whole?
Absolutely. You had been seeing some of the programs that I took during appropriation bill. So when we received a grant of $5 million from Department of Energy, we do the research. We did auditing of the electricity consumption in the household, and we did over 100 households in Connecticut. And we put the roadmap, what people have to do to improve the consumptions and what are the new tools and how to educate the community. So when we do the research and bring the federal dollars, we spend that across the state. And on our webpage, we have the heat map. When we get the dollars, where those dollars are spent, either through small businesses, us partnering with the large businesses, Pratt & Whitney, or small companies, SBIR, STTR programs, up to 500 people, we partner with all of them. There is no corner of the state that we don't touch with our research dollars, either going to classrooms and educating or applying the latest technologies to help the communities. You remember that we did Crumbling Foundation inspection and going across the state with our own money. We didn't ask state for the money to help households. So there are a lot of things that when UConn is stronger in research, the state benefits. The spin-off companies, those faculty that come, they're also very innovative and inventive. When they start the jobs, the new jobs, that benefits our community. So I would say community, I would say innovation, and dollars spent in Connecticut.
Thank you. I also just tend to think of the university's budget as being supported by three legs. One is state support, as obviously what we provide to the university as a state subsidy. There's also student dollars, your tuition revenue, room and board, those kinds of revenues that come directly from students and, the clientele you serve, if you want to call them that. And then the third leg would be research. When I look at our budget and our, limited ability to make investments that I think many of us would like to make in the university, or I look at students who are increasingly being asked to pay more and more of the overall budget, I see research as a potential answer to as a growth sector. The more research you do, the more you can defray other costs across the university, I would imagine.
That's correct, because we can recruit people on the research dollars. We can pay the summer salary. We can pay the graduate students. With research dollars, you grow the graduate students who are paid and coming and living in Connecticut. It is very difficult to be competitive if you don't have a critical mass. More and more dollars are for the large grants and for states and university that has 4 or 5 faculty participating. There is less grants for the one single investigator, and that has changed in the last 10 years in Washington, D.C. So how you prioritize? I think we are very good when it comes to facilities. State did a significant investment in Technology Park, in Science One. We have instruments. I always says we have Formula One, but we have to have drivers. You cannot win that race without having the drivers. Our population of the successful full faculty is aging and they're retiring, but we are not refilling them with more of the full professors. Because of the budget cut, we significantly increased the number of associate faculties and assistant faculties. And those people still need mentoring, they need the support, they need full faculty in order to be successful. So if we go for the grants of 50 million, 100 million, you need a critical mass.
I just have a couple more questions, and then I promise I'll turn it over to my colleagues if they have any questions as well. One is, as I think about over the last 10 years, I think that, this legislature did a grave disservice to UConn in terms of the way that we calculate and have calculated and collected money to pay off our unfunded pension liability. We all know that was included in the fringe rate for state employees, and that was a cost that was transferred really not just to students, but also to through research grants in terms of what funders were asked to pay for as they were considering applications at UConn to do research at UConn. That is something I'm very proud to have that we've resolved in large part. But are there other things that we can do that would sort of unleash your research potential? Are there investments we can make, or even better, things that we can do to get out of your way to help you grow your research book of business?
10 years ago, funding from state for UConn was 25%. Now that funding is 16%. The student portion is 58%. And every time we have the shortfall, we don't recruit. So if you have to compete, you have to invest. And as I said, if we don't have the critical number of the faculty, what I'm looking in our open house, every parent that comes, they ask, is any opportunity for my child to have the research opportunity as an undergraduate? I'm thinking of them going to graduate school. So we have to have people, we cannot just be teaching lab. Teaching happens in the classroom, but teaching happens at the research, innovation happens as a part of the research. So we have to have ability to expand. We are all aware that Connecticut population is shrinking, the high school students. So the students that we have to keep in Connecticut, and we have to attract others who are willing to stay in Connecticut. Now 70% of our students are from Connecticut, 30% are from other states and international. But when we look, when they graduate, where they do stay, 76% stay in Connecticut. So if we want to have that growing economy and high value jobs, we must make the hard decisions. And hard decisions is investing and bringing the best across the globe to come to Connecticut and say, we invested in infrastructure. Now we need those faculty who are going to bring reputation, who are going to teach our students, and who are going to help our economy.
And my last question, you were having this conversation at a particularly perilous moment in time, I think. You all know that, recently the federal government, I guess it would be for NIH grants, sort of began to change the methodology by which they decide they want to calculate indirect costs or other costs that support the research grants that are borne by the university, what it costs to sort of, do the research aside from actually doing the research. Can you, given the direction of the federal government, what do you think is the outlook there? What do you think it will mean for economic impact here in the state? What advice would you impart to your faculty or to us about how we should prepare for whatever might come at that level?
It's unpleasant. It's annoying. It's disturbing. But you see the future and you take actions today. So what we are doing, I'm talking to presidents from Texas University, from Florida University, because what is going to hurt us is hurting them as well. And they need to go to delegations. And I truly believe that this is going to reverse. With 17%, no university can stay successful. During the president time, Trump first administration, there was conversation that overhead is used for the marble floors. There is no dollar spent at UConn on the marble floor. We use for piping, we use for instrumentation, we use for paying summer salaries for our graduate students, we pay our undergraduate students. So that is how we spend indirect cost or that money. 70% is not enough to do one pipe. I can have a building, but if I cannot connect my equipment to gases and electricity and everything that I have to do, I cannot do the job. So there is no faculty that can sustain and be successful with 70%. Unfortunately, our rates are decided by federal government. So we are 58, 59%, but some private universities have overhead of 100%. So because of the fact that have 100%, I think there is going to happen the change, but do I think it's going to stay 70%? I don't believe. I think it will come to 50, 60% where it should be.
Thank you. I don't have any further questions for you. I don't look to see if any of my colleagues have a question. Senator Gadkar-Wilcox.
Thank you so much for being here and for your testimony and for the work that and supported for this bill. I'm a faculty member myself at Quinnipiac University, and I just became full professor last year. So I absolutely understand your comment about the need for mentoring and more full professors as well to mentor associate and assistant professors. And I appreciate the strategic vision here because I have a background in constitutional law and human rights law. And it was very fortunate to be working with both the Human Rights Institute and the Dot Impact for many, many years now. Kathy Liebal, Glenn Matoma, both good friends, and we've been doing great work together. And one of the things, I'm glad to see social justice and human rights as part of your strategic priorities. And when I think of what distinguishes UConn in the state of Connecticut and what you really lead on, I always jump to human rights because that has been something particularly through these two institutes that you have, but also the work around it, the Scholars at Risk program. There's so much built into human rights at UConn. So I just wanted to applaud you for that work and for investing in those programs and building this culture of human rights, and including human rights education that has sort of trickled down to high schools. And I just wanted to ask more if you see that as in particular, because when I look at the other strategic priorities, I understand there's some strengths there too, but that's shared maybe across some of the other universities. I see human rights, really you're leading in Connecticut in human rights. And I think Connecticut is leading in human rights nationally. And I do other work with the Oxford Consortium for Human Rights, where you send students as well. And we have community college students that go to this program, which is a really program about access to opportunities like participating in human rights in Oxford. And so is that maybe a distinguishing marker for you as you're putting in this application, that above and beyond the other strategic priorities where there are some strengths in other universities, there isn't maybe that same strength, even nationally, for the culture that you have built around human rights? And if you can say a little bit more about how you're investing there, including the institutes you already have, but any other programs around that. I'm just personally interested in that. And I think that's good for us as a state and good for you as you're putting this application together, because it really, to me, is already a point of distinction and perhaps can even be enhanced with further research, investment in research.
Thank you. I really appreciate your comment, and I applaud you of becoming the full professor, because I'm fully aware how much of the sweat and hard work is behind to put the package and promotion and everything together. Absolutely, humanity and human rights is one of our strengths, and this is where we want to enhance. It's not only straight to be the national leader, we are the global leader with Abraham Act and everything that we do for the world and for the peace. And I would like our provost to share more about, what is the strategy for humanity and human rights at UConn.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Senator, for your question. You're absolutely right. Our Human Rights Institute is a global leader. I think one of the distinctive hallmarks of that institute is its multidisciplinarity. So many human rights programs will adhere to political science and law as their primary focus. We are very multidisciplinary. So we have an absolutely unique program in engineering and human rights. We have a program that I had the privilege of starting in the arts and human rights. So we take that multidisciplinary approach, and there are benefits not only in terms of the scholarship, but in terms of our impact in communities and across the nation and across the globe. So we are investing in human rights. We're taking that multidisciplinary perspective, and it is one of our signature programs at UConn. Thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Ackert.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and President Merrick, thank you for being here, and your colleagues, thank you so much. Question on this is on this application. First, how long has this association been together as a group?
AU.
The research organization that you're looking to get it. How long?
125 years.
125?
Correct.
Has UConn ever applied or been a member before?
No, we've never applied. You cannot apply, you have to be invited.
Okay.
And what they look your growth in the National Academy Fellows, they look your growth in the research portfolio, they look your growth in the citations. So what we put in this presentation are some of criteria where we are comparing to other universities. I looked in last 10 years, what is our top faculty hiring, and how we average toward those universities that are there, and we are significantly below. In last 10 years, we didn't recruit any year. One year was 2021, 11 full professors. Every year was one single digit. And those universities each year recruit between 50 and 60 full professors.
Thank you for that answer. I appreciate that. I'm looking at slide 11, and can you explain that slide a little bit? And the reason why I'm asking the question a little bit, I met with one of your faculty members, and I appreciate the research that you're doing, because what this faculty member is doing is researching unfortunately, the highway deaths that UConn is actually being teamed up with, I believe, DOT to do that study for them. As you mentioned, the collaboration that you have with our state agency is fantastic. So if you could take a moment, I'm trying to digest what that slide is.
Absolutely. I will have our vice president, but I know who is professor, and this is Eric Jackson, who has been significant contributor to our state economy. He works very closely with Department of Transportation. He has been looking the accidents. He has been putting the sensors. He's working on controlling the traffic, controlling the, signals and everything. So I just want to acknowledge, because that's another example of contribution to economy for somebody who is solely paid on grants. He refused to be a tenure faculty. He believes that he can always bring the research dollars because what he does has a huge impact.
Thank you. And I'm going to ask the follow-up after that, but I'll let you please go ahead, Doctor.
Sure. So thank you for that question. The NSF comes up with a survey every year around November. And what they do is, take the data that's self-reported by the institutions that are participating in that survey on expenditures, whether these are research expenditures that are through federal government agencies or internal state and internal funds. So when you look at the different funding sources that's being summarized in that table, you'll see that when you look at federally financed expenditures or institutional dollars spent on research, the university is doing fairly well. And those numbers have been increasing steadily in the last 10 years. We've seen significant growth in federal dollars coming in from a variety of agencies. Last year, we had $368 million in terms of new awards and a record of $342 million in terms of research expenditures. But then there are also other categories there where we could do with some improvement, and those are the ones that are the red ones. We can do better in terms of corporate and business direct funding towards research and development. We could do better with private foundations, for example. So these are the Gates Foundations, the Sloan Foundations, and others. And then we could do better with state and government funding. These are research dollars that come in through, for example, different state agencies like DEEP, like DCD, and so on and so forth. So that's where that's what we concluded from that, is that this is where will have a lot of impact, because if things continue the way they are continuing with the federal government, which is a big if, I certainly understand that, the difference is going to be in these relatively reddish, orangish buckets that need to be improved for us to get a better standing in the NSF HERD survey.
Thank you, Doctor. And thank you, President Merrick. That's what I wanted you to highlight. When I see, it was brought to my attention and through the good chair's work and one of the bills that we had, and we found out that what the state puts into each student that goes is woefully low. And that's why working on the Roberta Willis grant. So I see that 159 is the number for our state against the other research institutions. So that's where it's a state and local government funding. That's pretty low. And that's why I wanted you to highlight that for us. So I appreciate that. And then to follow up to your mention about the grant, President Barry, that your department member was getting for the research, and it is typically when you say grant, I imagine it's federal grant. Is that correct?
Correct.
Right, because the
Federal grant, yes.
reason why I
Because
had,
you see how low is a state grant, so.
that's why I wanted you to get a chance to highlight that.
Absolutely.
Because obviously I had a meeting in district, and some of your good research faculty came and go, we're nervous.
Mhm.
We're nervous about,
Correct.
do I have a job? But they're doing the good work that we're asking them from a state agency level
Absolutely.
to do without state dollars.
Absolutely.
And
And that's
so-
why I'm highlighting the work of Eric Jackson. He has been one of the most productive faculty after the federal dollars never took $1 from state, for retirement or anything. All his salary benefits has been on the federal dollars, and he done more for state than anybody else.
Thank you. And thank you for giving the shout out to that to him. And I appreciate that. I appreciate your time. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Are there any additional questions? Seeing none, thank you very much for your testimony. We appreciate your time today. Next up on the list is Sean Seepersad from the Office of Higher Education. John, if you want to introduce yourself, and I'll just ask everybody to tell us what bill you're about to testify on. Some of the list, I think, sort of just got a little discombobulated in front of us, and so I think you're not here to testify on 1414, but you are here to testify maybe on one or two bills regarding authorization to confer degrees.
That's right. Just to clarify, I'm here for SB 1412 and SB 1424. And just to introduce myself, my name is Sean Seepersad. I'm the Division Director of Academic Affairs at the Connecticut Office of Higher Education. Senator Slapp, Representative Haddad, Senator Gadkar Wilcox, Representative Rochelle, Senator Martin, Representative Bronco, and distinguished members of the Higher Ed and Employment Advancement Committee. Thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony in support of SB 1412, an act authorizing the Norwalk Conservatory of the Arts to confer degrees, and SB 1424, an act authorizing the International Institute of Aeronautical Sciences to confer degrees, which, once approved, would expand our state's higher education landscape by allowing 2 new qualified institutions to confer degrees in Connecticut. Section C of the Connecticut General Statutes 10A 34C states, no person, school, board, association, or corporation shall confer any degree unless authorized by an act of the General Assembly. No application for authority to confer any such degree shall be approved by the General Assembly or any committee thereof, nor shall any such authority be included in any charter or incorporation until such application has been evaluated and approved by the Office of Higher Education in accordance with the regulations established by the Office of Higher Education. The Office of Higher Education hereby affirms that the 2 institutions, Norwalk Conservatory of the Arts and the International Institute of Aeronautical Sciences, have been approved by the Office of Higher Education. These institutions have been successfully instructing students and are opposed to graduating students from their programs. Further statute, OHE requests that the General Assembly approve these institutions to confer degrees. Approving these bills is an important step towards promoting innovation by encouraging the establishment of new institutions that are providing instruction and curricula that reflect today's needs. The establishment of these 2 new schools expands access to quality higher education, bolsters our state's economic development, and ensures the standards of excellence and accountability are upheld through the provisions provided in 10A 34C. I respectfully urge the committee to approve this legislation and reinforce Connecticut's commitment to educational excellence and economic vitality. Thank you for your consideration, and I'm open for questions.
Yeah, thank you very much for your testimony. Just one, I think, for me, which is, can you tell us how you evaluate the programs at OHE?
Sure. So in the regulations that we have, we have standards by which we look at the institutions and their programs to evaluate if they meet these standards or not. The process begins with an application from the institution in which we ask them to respond to each of these standards. The standards cover the gamut from faculty to financial resources to the curriculum and everything else in there, facilities, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what the application does. For new institutions and for new programs, we have a circulation document that we send to all existing institutions. And we ask existing institutions if they have any concerns about the new institution or new program, and they have a 15-day opportunity to respond to that. Then after that, we assemble a evaluation team. The evaluation team consists of a variety of different experts, both in the subject matter area and just in general about operating institutions and so on. The evaluation team will review the application materials. We conduct a site visit. We get feedback from the evaluation team concerning any concerns that they have in terms of did the institution and their programs meet the required standards as it's outlined in the regulations. There's a little back and forth. And then if the evaluation team feels like they have adequately addressed the standards, we would make a recommendation for the commissioner to authorize the institutions and their programs.
Right, and not for nothing, but does your testimony constitute official notification from the Office of Higher Education that they've met all the standards?
We are putting it that way, yes.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from members of the committee? Senator Gadkar Wilcox.
Hi, thank you very much for your testimony. So just what question of what did you hear from the other institutions? Was there any opposition or concerns? Are there any other universities that can confer these degrees right now? And would creating 2 new institutions sort of compete with those programs already, which particularly if they're at state universities, I'm wondering what the impact of that is going to be. So are there any institutions right now that confer these degrees, particularly at the state institutions? And 2, did you hear from those institutions during the comment period as with regard to their objections?
Sure. Thank you for that question. We did not get any feedback for either institution and their programs when we sent out the circulation documents. The institutions are also here to testify as well. And I think when you hear from them, you'll realize that both institutions are offering highly specialized kinds of education. The aeronautical sciences, for example, I mean, they're doing stuff with space suits and microgravity and all these other things that are really highly specialized. And I can't confirm for sure, but I don't know that really anybody else is offering that. And then Norwalk Conservatory of the Arts, I mean, they are also, they have a close relationship with the folks in Broadway, and they're really training folks to get into that area. So I don't believe that I mean, I don't want to say for sure, but you know, it seems like they're offering very specialized things, and we haven't gotten any feedback when we did do the circulation that there was any such concern.
But the language of the bill doesn't restrict them to those degrees in particular. Once it's granted, they can grant any degree. So they could create other programs potentially that then compete with, I mean, I imagine I know there are already programs in the arts, for example.
Right. So for any new program that the institution may put forward, we then go through again the whole process with the circulation documents. So at that point, if they're proposing a new program, we would get additional feedback from institutions if they have concerns in terms of competition and so on.
And what are the funding sources for these 2 particular institutions? Is it for-profit, not-for-profit?
They're both not-for-profit.
Okay, and they're both nonprofit, but privately.
They're both
supported.
not-for-profit. Norwalk, I believe is mostly student tuition, but they have gotten some outside funding, some grant money. I believe it's the same for IAS, but when they testify, I think you can ask them more closely about how they support their institutions. Yes.
Great, thank you.
Are there any additional questions regarding these issues for Mr. Steve Prasad? Seeing none, thank you very much for your testimony.
Thank you.
Next up on our list is Kelly Light, I think is joining us remotely, followed by Colby Geddes.
Hi.
Light, you can proceed.
Hi, good afternoon, esteemed members of the committee. My name is Kelly Light. I'm an adjunct art professor at Tungus Community College, part of the state community college system. I'm here to voice my strong support for Bill 1414, which aims to address the critical need for hiring full-time permanent faculty and staff at our community colleges. So I'm an illustrator with 30 plus years of experience in children's books, licensing, and animation. After a successful publishing career as an author and an illustrator, I went through a divorce that left me financially unstable, and I decided to turn to teaching with all that experience, to share with younger artists what the life is like and the challenges are, making your passion your job, as well as turning to teaching for some stability. So after 2 years of study, and spending $50,000 for an MFA from the University of Hartford, I immediately began teaching at Tunxus and as UHart as an adjunct. I looked for full-time positions as an illustration professor in New England, but the majority of the positions, truly 75 to 80% of them out there, are adjunct. It is just another freelance job. So I'm a glimpse into the life of an adjunct. I wake up at 5 a.m. I drive 1 hour to teach the 8 a.m. Drawing 2 class at Tunxus. It lasts till about 10:40, but I stay at Tunxus till about 11:40, getting ready for the next class, and they're available if any student needs me. I jump in my car, I head over to UHart, where I teach 2 more studio classes, where I leave at 9 p.m. and drive an hour home, giving me 2 13-hour teaching days a week, plus about another 10 hours a week of prep and follow-up time for those classes. So I also teach a private class online. I mentor people, as well as illustrating a children's book for Macmillan with an April deadline right now. So all of this is to add up to income that pays my bills, and most importantly, to try and pay for health insurance. I was looking for something stable in teaching, and to find that there is almost no stability has been quite an adjustment. I also work semester to semester, not knowing if at the end of the semester the job will be available for me next semester. Sometimes you can be hired to teach a class, but then be told that the class will not be running due to low enrollment, leaving me unable to replace that job and that income for months. So it's a perilous space to exist in. And it's one that I didn't fully understand until I was actually in it. If the state of teaching jobs in colleges was taught in my MFA program, it probably would have dissuaded a lot of people from spending the money to get the terminal degree that many schools strongly request for you to teach in. So due to my adjunct status and schedule, I feel that I cannot dig in and invest in either school as much as I need to, as much as I should, and as much as the students need me to. So I would be the example of an adjunct professor with a lot of work experience in my field. But I also saw how many undergrads are going straight into graduate studies to get the teaching degree. And they are able to actually take the lower paying jobs because they don't have the life responsibilities and the financial responsibilities that someone further along in life has. So I had my own child's college expenses at the same time as I had my elderly mother's care expenses. So the full-time job would give me that stability as well as the health insurance to actually make my life livable. So I'm sorry.
I'm just going to ask you to summarize the rest of your testimony. We're going to try to hold folks to a 3-minute limit.
Okay. So, when I've worked with the Tunxus community college students, I realize that many of them are there because they have a wide range of needs and guidance, and they need more of my time. And I would love to be able to give them that time, and I could if I was there as a full-time faculty member. But as I said, as long as adjuncting is just another freelance job, I cannot. So I urge you to support this legislation to ensure that Connecticut State Community College has the resources to provide quality education and support for all the students. Thank you for your time and commitment to Connecticut's future.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Are there questions by members of the committee? Senator Gadkar Wilcox.
Just a quick comment to say thank you for everything that you're doing. I can understand we have many wonderful adjunct faculty members who are struggling and putting in just incredible amounts of work. So thank you for everything that you're doing for students, supporting education, and your support for this bill.
Thank you. Next up is Colby Geddes, also joining us remotely. You have 3 minutes to offer us your testimony. I welcome you to the committee and you can begin.
Good afternoon, Senate Chair Slapp, House Chair Haddad, and members of the Higher Education and Employment Advancement Committee. My name is Colby Geddes. I'm a student at Wesleyan, and I'm here to testify in support of SB 1411. I'm here because of the circumstances I lived through last year as a sophomore. Entering my sophomore year, my roommate and I were placed into the art house on Wesleyan's campus. It's a program house. It's meant to be a space for creating, displaying, and discussing the visual arts for its residents and guests. My roommate and I realistically do not conform to any of those things, so we are a little out of place. But I'm somebody that tries to make the best of a situation like that just because I didn't really want to be miserable for the whole year. So we're excited to see that the room was fairly large when we got there, but that was really the only positive of it. Definitely was not like a housing room. It was a common area room that they converted into a room. There was a fireplace with a massive wood plank over it. The door next to my bed was screwed in with exposed screws. And then worst of all, there was a plastic panel in the ceiling that was covering a massive hole. We didn't figure out why it was there until about a couple weeks later when we heard squirrels running around in our roof. And if this was like a structurally sound house, I'd probably be okay with it, but it was a plastic panel that was holding the squirrels between us. And one day the squirrel just fell through the ceiling and was in our room. We had to get it out ourselves just because the Res Life people would have taken a while to get there. But when we spoke to them, they told us that we were lucky because some other program houses had rats that were just hanging around the house, going through holes. So it was kind of just a bad situation. And I just feel like it's important to note that because the housing on Wesleyan's campus, in my opinion, is already inadequate. And they plan on destroying that program house in the next couple of years. So I just have genuine questions as to where overflow students like me, where we would live if those are destroyed and if off-campus housing is not available. That's one of the main reasons I think off-campus housing should be available at Wesleyan is because we already have too many students. Kids are living in triples. I got moved to a program house where I didn't feel like, honestly, I belong just because I'm not into art. But yeah, I just feel like off-campus housing could alleviate some of the pressure on that. They have no plans to build any new housing, and I feel like that would fix a lot. So yeah, I urge the committee to support SB 1411, and I believe it'll have a positive impact on our campus and other colleges as well.
Thank you. Are there members who have questions for Mr. Geddes? I don't see any, but thank you very much for offering us your testimony. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next up is on my list, I think he's supposed to be remote, is Matthew Keeney. I'll ask if he is not here, I'll call, next person is Ed Hawthorne, who is here in the room with us. He'll be followed by Lorraine Lee, who is joining us remotely. Welcome to our committee.
It's great to be here. Good morning, Senator Slapp, Representative Haddad, other distinguished members of the Higher Education and Employment Advancement Committee. My name is Ed Hawthorne. I'm proud to serve as the president of the Connecticut AFL-CIO, a federation of hundreds of local unions representing approximately 250,000 working people here in the great state of Connecticut in the public sector, private sector, and Connecticut state building trades. It's on their behalf I testify here today on SB 1414, an act concerning the percentage of courses taught by part-time faculty at Connecticut State Community College. Our community colleges offer affordable pathways for students to start their path towards a four-year degree. They provide certifications and associate degrees that align with local industry needs in high-demand fields such as healthcare, manufacturing, information technology. There's been an over-reliance on part-time faculty. Connecticut community colleges use adjunct faculty exclusively to cut instructional costs. In fall of 2024, 3/4 of the faculty were part-time, teaching about 41% of the credits, almost half. The challenges that you've heard and you'll hear from faculty here today, but employment on a semester-by-semester basis with no reemployment guarantee, even though they do get a letter guaranteeing reemployment, so they don't have to pay unemployment over the summer. Courses can be canceled at the last minute due to low enrollment or reassigned to full-time faculty. Many part-time faculty have long-term commitments without full-time positions, and they struggle with healthcare and unexpected expenses due to unpredictable employment terms. It really is a disadvantage to our students. Stable faculty presence improves academic experiences and student support. It really does. It makes a huge difference. Colleges with more full-time staff show better student retention and graduation rates. That's something we should all be concerned with. And the full-time stable staff really can delve in, get to know the students, and really put their heart and soul into it. They already do, but we should respect all the work that they put into it. What the bill asks for is a gradual reduction of part-time courses. It requires the state community colleges to reduce the number of courses taught by part-time faculty to 25% by July of 2028. The importance of the bill is ensuring quality education, as I stated before. Strong community colleges with sufficient full-time faculty enhance education quality, and stable employment leads to better outcomes and academic support for our students that are on their path to become the workers that Connecticut needs, the workers that we value, and I urge support of the bill. Be happy to answer any questions the committee may have.
Thank you. Are there questions? Representative Ackert.
Thank you. Probably more of it in line with a comment. I appreciate you giving me the numbers, Ed. I was a trustee for the community college prior to here, and we struggled with that same key. Is that the goal of the, at that time, the Board of Trustees was to do just what you said we should be doing. And that is to start to fill these slots so that, hey, listen, we know the value that an adjunct professor provides, when needed, but not it be the percentage, the larger percentage than our full-time.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what it seems when you just mentioned 41%, I believe is what your number was.
Yes, sir.
Is there, so I
41% of all credits it was. Yeah. So not classes, but the credits, some classes 1, 3, stuff like that.
Sure. I appreciate your you being here and bringing that, to light and supporting that cause. It's been a long time that we have been supporting it, but I think now sometimes you put it in legislation, at least you work toward that. And hopefully that, I'm sure this is probably going to go to another committee that deals with dollars possibly, or, so hopefully they see the same light as that when you have brought your testimony to us. So thank you for being here, and I thank you for allowing me that comment.
Thank you, Representative Ackert. Senator Gedkar Wilcox.
Yes. Hi, Ed. And thanks for being here, and thanks for your comment. I just wanted to emphasize what you said about the exploitative nature of the actual labor that goes into adjunct work. And it's a lot of work, and you have faculty members that are really dedicated to students, and they spend more time than they're certainly being compensated for. But I think that people even understand it's not just about hours in the classroom. It's about dedicated time. And I'm sure we'll hear from faculty members, but dedicated time to show up for student projects, student events, advising students, and they wind up taking, taking up initiatives well beyond what they're designed to do with curriculum. And and they do it because it's a labor of love that has to be compensated in a way. And we need to make sure that's equitable and fair. So thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any additional questions? Seeing none, thank you very much for your testimony.
Thank you all.
Next up, joining us remotely is Lorraine Lee. She will be followed by John O'Connor.
Economics at CT State Community College, Gateway. I'm here to speak in support of SB 1414, a bill that will set maximum levels of sections taught by part-time faculty. So a little history, when I first started teaching part-time in 1995, 30 years ago, I knew the content of the courses I was teaching, but knew nothing about what the community and community college meant. My job was to teach students, answer questions, and go home to prep for other courses. I had little to do with the students outside of classes, didn't know about the programs or curriculum, so couldn't really advise students, and was not engaged in the extracurricular opportunities the college offered to students. Since I didn't have even an office hours were often at the Dunkin' Donuts. I was a full-time part-timer teaching both credit and non-credit courses at 6 different community colleges, plus 2 privates, or hustling from campus to campus for almost 10 years. When I finally got a full-time offer at Gateway in 2004, I jumped at it thinking, oh, this is going to be so easy. I'll teach 4 courses in one place instead of 3 or 4 classes per semester at all different locations. Right? And boy, was I wrong, but in a really good way. So as a full-time faculty member, I saw what community meant. I started advising students and guiding them through their community college career from their first semester to graduation. I had time to collaborate with other faculty to improve curriculum and programs. I advised student clubs. I spent hours and hours preparing students and taking them to interstate competitions, helping to open their eyes to their own potential and possibilities. I brought in guest speakers in our Yale Gateway series to talk about the economy, health issues, Russia, constitutional law, including Akhil Amar, who's a very famous constitutional attorney, and also talk about perseverance through adversity. All right, it sounds like it's all about me, but that's totally not the point. The point is, I never did anything but teach when I was a part-timer. I tried my best, but I just didn't have the time. While our part-time faculty are great and bring real-world experience to students, they may not be able to engage the students as much as the full-timers. As a full-time faculty, I felt I could bring so much more to our students to kind of enhance their education. And there's, you know, as the last speaker said, there's tons of academic studies showing greater interaction with faculty, the greater interaction the faculty and student engagement, the greater the retention, performance, and completion. So isn't that what we all want? The state universities actually have contract language regarding the maximum number of sections taught by part-timers. So this is nothing new or radical. Our community college students facing the most barriers to completion. Not
Lorraine,
taking anything.
That's 3 minutes. If you want to summarize the remainder of your testimony. that
Okay,
would be-
so not taking anything away from the great part-timers, the students deserve to be taught by full-time faculty who are there for them and can really engage them. Please support SB 1414. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. We appreciate you sharing your experience with us. And I agree. I think, you know, with the work that's performed by full-time faculty goes well beyond, you know, the four corners of a classroom instruction. And especially for the population that goes to community college, that extra time that is available to them from a full-time tenured professor is critical sometimes to their success as compared to you know even the time that's spent in the classroom. And so I appreciate your sharing your perspective with us. Are there additional questions or comments from members of the committee? Seeing none, thank you very much for your testimony. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next up here in the room with us is John O'Connor. He'll be followed by Michelle Fisher-Paul. Go ahead, John.
Sorry about that. Good afternoon, Senator Slapp, Representative Haddad, and all the members of the Higher Education and Employment Advancement Committee. My name is John O'Connor. I'm one of the leaders of CSU-AUP, the union that represents faculty members in the state universities at Central, Western, Eastern, and Southern. I teach in the sociology department at Central Connecticut, and I've done that for over 20 years. I strongly support SB 1414. For the last few years, Connecticut State Community College has been associated with the word crisis. We have all heard it. There has been a budget crisis. There's a crisis in student services. There's a long-standing consolidation crisis, but the real crisis in Connecticut State has always been its over-reliance on part-time faculty. CT State illustrates the dirty little secret that defines higher education in our state and defines it nationally. Higher education institutions rest on a foundation of precarious employment. They function because of the hyper-exploitation of part-time workers. Higher education cannot exist without them, but their work is not rewarded and it's not celebrated. Connecticut State Community College has some of the highest part-time faculty ratios in the nation. Woodland Street knows this and is concerned about it. Everyone in this room also knows and agrees that education is a pathway to social mobility and a decent life. Yet for the workers who make that promise to our students at Connecticut State, they themselves have been shut out from the benefits of their own education. They are condemned to employment that is insecure, isolated, and devalued. We know the story that part-time faculty are underpaid, forced to work multiple jobs at multiple institutions. They have inadequate or no health benefits, no sick days. They often have no pension, no leave for medical or family emergencies. Part-time faculty have no job security. Yet what part-time faculty do in the classroom is no different from what I do. Yet my work is rewarded, their work is not. It's a major problem. At the CSUs, by contract, we restrict the percentage of part-time faculty. Within our institutions, no more than 20% of our faculty can be part-time. What SB 1414 intends to do already exists at the CSUs. What is good for our universities should be good for our colleges. Students deserve teachers who are well-paid and have good benefits. It is a haunting indictment of us all that our community colleges who serve the most underrepresented and low-income students in our state look like a gig economy staffed by precarious professors. We should restrict the number of part-time faculty and move them into full-time jobs with benefit. Such a move would be good for our students, good for our faculty members, and good for Connecticut. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Are there questions by members of the committee? Representative Ackert.
Professor, thank you for being here and highlighting something that I wasn't aware of. We created a system, right? The CSCU system, but we're not equal. So the four-year institutions have a 20%,
Yes.
but we don't hold that standard in the community college level.
Yes.
How can we have a system that is supposed to be a system and not be treated equal?
It is a major problem. It's a major problem. And the fact of the matter is, you know, my students, right, you know, in some ways, the best students that I have, right, started out in the community colleges, right? And, you know, I've had a lot of students who have gone on and done great things. And I think that they were just lucky, right? That at the right time, right, they came across the right faculty member that kept them on track and kept them moving, right? I mean, there's a lot on the plate of part-time faculty members, right? They get pushed and pulled in all sorts of different directions in order to try to make a career, try to make a living doing this work. And they're as committed as anyone, but it seems to me that work really does need to be rewarded. And I would just make the argument that, you know, I do think that this is a problem that has to be, the solution has to be legislative, right? That I think this committee and the politicians in this building are going to have to help us solve this problem. And it's a problem that could be easily solved. There should be equity between the colleges and the universities. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. If we're going to create a system, it's got to be a system.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for your testimony. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Representative Ackert. Senator Slapp.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
Quick question. Do you know if, in order to be a faculty member at the Connecticut Community College, do you need a PhD?
I believe you don't, no. But that's also true in the CSUs, right? You don't need a PhD to actually teach as well.
Right, to be a full professor, you don't need a PhD, is that right?
Well, to actually get tenure and be a full
tenure.
professor, you do, yes.
Yeah. Do you know how many of the, and this you may not know, but maybe it's something you could follow up with us on. How many of adjunct professors in terms of academic qualifications are qualified to be full professors?
I don't know that data off the top of my head, but I could get that for you. Absolutely, Senator.
Okay.
No problem.
Yeah, that'd be
I could
wonderful.
get that.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Are there any additional questions? Seeing none, thank you very much for your testimony.
Thank you.
Next up is Michelle Fisher-Paul. She will be followed by Stanley Marcinzik. Michelle, you can proceed.
Hello, good afternoon, honorable co-chairs, ranking members, and members of the Higher Education Committee. My name is Michelle Fisher-Paul from Berlin, Connecticut. I'm here today to provide testimony regarding Raise Bill 7100, which deals with intimate partner crimes, sexual violence, and stalking. at collegiate institutions. A detailed history regarding my passion and commitment to this cause are uploaded to the testimony portal. To summarize my history, in 2020, my daughter was a victim of a violent assault by the hands of a CCSU baseball player. She was not a CCSU student, and the crime occurred just 2 blocks off campus. We had him arrested and proceeded through the court system, and we also filed a misconduct report with CCSU, knowing that athletes were held to a higher standard and that the CCSU code of conduct pertained to on and off campus crimes. For 10 months, the CCSU investigator actively led us to believe that we would be part of the disciplinary proceedings, and she often referred to the code of conduct and what to expect in the process. So of course I immersed myself in the code. In the end, CCSU grossly mishandled my daughter's case, and they breached their own policy, held a disciplinary hearing without us, and refused to disclose any information on the outcome of the hearing. I reached out to multiple agencies, filed a whistleblower report, and received no answers. The underlying message in all these rejections was that since the crime was committed off campus and my daughter was not a CCSU student, that she had no rights to information nor participation in the proceedings. The language in this part of the Code of Conduct is a really big gray area. So I'm in favor of Bill 7100, and it certainly begins to address these issues. However, there's 2 concerns that I want to mention. First off, the subject line of the bill states that it deals with, quote unquote, victims of Title IX proceedings. Title IX, by definition, only deals with on-campus or campus-related activities. If a crime is committed off campus, as in my daughter's case, it does not qualify for Title IX, which neither did my daughter's case. I don't know the actual numbers, but I do know that many crimes of such happen off campus, at apartments, parties, and other social venues. On line 37 of Bill 7100, it states, and quote unquote, regardless of where such incidences occurred. So to me, this means that the bill is applicable to all locations of the crime, not just Title IX jurisdictions. However, if the intent of this bill is for specifically Title IX, it will continue to exclude victims of off-campus crimes, just like my daughter. Please consider changing the subject line of this bill to omit the Title IX reference and to clarify that this bill is not exclusive to just Title IX victims, but it covers both on and off-campus victims. I found that the wording in the bill's statement of purpose was very clear and would cover this omission of Title IX references. The second point is the language in the bill's lines 20 through 70, which specifies, quote unquote, the student or employee reporting the alleged violation. Now, this is kind of confusing because it's not until line 108 that victims not associated with the institution is mentioned. So please consider adding other victims or a third party to those lines 20 through 70 that would clarify the processes listed in those lines to apply to all victims, whether or not they are associated with the college. So I want to thank you for the opportunity for allowing me to speak today regarding creating a better, inclusive, and transparent policy for Connecticut colleges in handling cases of sexual assault, stalking, and intimate partner violence. And on behalf of victims like my daughter, thank you for letting me be their voice for justice. I don't have the power or authority to make these changes, but I know that you as a committee do have that authority. You can grant the victims the rights they deserve with dignity and a newfound faith in a government that oftentimes fails them, and you can keep our future generations safe. So thank you for having
Thank
me.
you very much for your testimony. Are there questions for the I see none. Thank you very much. We appreciate your testimony and sharing your personal experience, that of your daughter, and the recommendations you make for our bill. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next up is Stanley Marcinzik, followed by Sarah Berry.
Hi, good afternoon, Chairperson and esteemed members of this committee. I really thank you for the opportunity for me to speak today. My name is Stanley Marcinzik. I'm an adjunct professor of business at CT State at Tunxis. in Farmington. I enjoy working with the community college as it allows me as an individual and a retired individual from Aetna to help students learn current business practices and share my business work experiences, and also to help students make their pathways after graduation. And personally, this is my way of giving back. I'm a CCSC graduate in 1977. So I enjoy helping people out and giving them back in semi-retirement mode here. I'm here to advocate for the urgent need to hire more full-time teaching positions, while also improving the benefits for part-time adjunct faculty within our system. This is regarding SB 014-1414, percentage taught by full-time professors. Our state colleges and universities play a critical role. However, the increasing reliance on adjunct faculty who often work without security, benefits, or livable wages, as presented in prior speakers today, threatens the quality of education that we provide our students. Adjunct faculty constitute a significant portion of the instructional force. It's approximately, I believe, 70% at the, 75% at the community colleges. So this reliance on the adjunct faculty is higher than national averages. Connecticut has the fourth highest ratio of part-time to full-time faculty in two-year community colleges. These figures highlight a heavy dependence on adjuncts, okay, like myself, within Connecticut's higher education system, underscoring the need for initiatives to hire more full-time teaching professors and improve benefits for part-time adjunct professors. As a side note, I have an MBA. I am a part-time adjunct, and I'm not looking for full-time work at this point. Full-time faculty members are essential for maintaining academic excellence. They provide stability, mentorship, and curriculum continuity, all of which enhance the student success. When institutions rely heavily on adjuncts, students lose access to the consistent guidance and support that full-time faculty can offer. When I teach my classes, I do not have an office. I have office hours before and after class. And although I do make myself available via email to my students, I'm here to support my students and move them ahead, again, because someone helped me out when I was a younger man. Furthermore, adjunct professors who are often just as qualified as their full-time counterparts face financial instability, often juggling multiple jobs to make ends meet, as presented by a prior speaker today. This is not only unfair, but also detrimental to our educational institutions. So this is what I'm proposing. We need to increase the full-time hiring faculty on a phased-in basis to reduce dependency on adjunct labor and enhance student outcomes. And secondly, I would really like it if we could improve compensation and benefits for adjunct professors. This will draw in other professors and other people from the business, especially in the manufacturing realm, to help and move the state of Connecticut ahead. There's many jobs that need to be fulfilled in the manufacturing and business roles. And again, we're here to help. And I appreciate your time and considerations. And I hope we can take some meaningful steps in strengthening higher education in our state. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Is there any members of the committee who have a question for Mr. Marcinczyk? Seeing none, thank you very much for offering your perspective. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Next up is number 13, Sarah Berry. She'll be followed by Daniel George. Sarah, you can proceed.
Good afternoon. My name is Sarah Berry. I'm an adjunct faculty member at CT State Manchester, state part-time vice president of the 4 Cs, and a proud Manchester Community College alum. I'm here today to urge you to support Senate Bill 1414. Over 20 years ago, I arrived at MCC as a first-generation college student. I chose MCC because I'd heard about the dedicated faculty and staff, wide variety of support services, and affordability. I flourished here, graduating with honors. 11 years ago, after 4 years at Central, earning my bachelor's and my master's, I came home to teach at MCC to students like me. When I was a student, most faculty were full-time and readily available outside of class. Now, part-time employees outnumber full-timers 3 to 1. We work on contingent exploitative contracts with little job security, no benefits, and no health care. I would never have guessed that college faculty with master's degrees and PhDs could have as little job security as my high school educated parents. but I learned quickly, never knowing if I'd get a class next semester or whether it would run. Research shows that more access to full-time faculty means higher rates of student success for many reasons, the most obvious being that full-time faculty have more access to resources, more space, more technology, and more importantly, more time to invest in their students. Adjuncts do not have private offices on campus. Many have no office, and those that do share space with multiple colleagues. At any given time, my office space may have an adjunct giving a makeup exam, another reviewing concepts with a student, another discussing with a student the likelihood of passing, another with a student explaining personal circumstances, and yet another trying to concentrate on grading assignments. None of these students are getting the best experience nor the same attention they would if their course was taught by a full-time faculty member with a private office. Students taking exams would have a quiet space. Students reviewing material would be able to focus on their professor's explanations. Struggling students would have a place to talk privately, and students whose professor is trying to grade would likely have their work returned sooner and with more feedback. Many adjuncts work multiple part-time jobs, having less time to spend on campus, less time to meet with students, less connection to the campus community, and less knowledge of the resources available to students, which means less ability to refer students in need to appropriate services. 75% of community college faculty are adjuncts, which means 75% of us lack necessary resources. It does not mean that 75% of us are less qualified or talented instructors, but it does mean that 75% of us are being exploited. It means 75% of us may not be working here next semester when students are looking for recommendation letters or want to connect with faculty that made a difference to them. Mandating a higher percent of courses taught by full-timers is a huge step towards helping both our students as well as our adjuncts seeking full-time jobs. But I have a concern. There are ways the system can get around this mandate. In 2017, they won a concession that new full-time faculty would have to teach 15 credits rather than the traditional 12. This does technically increase the percent of courses taught by full-timers, but it does not achieve the goal of more faculty access for students. Also, pre-17 faculty often take additional courses at part-time rates, allowing management to pay less per course while artificially increasing the percent of full-time courses. Teaching more courses means dealing with more students and their needs, and students' needs have increased significantly. Course caps have increased, leading to fewer sections, further artificially increasing the percent of full-time courses. Increasing the percent of full-time courses is an excellent first step, but what we ultimately need is the hiring of more full-time faculty, not existing faculty teaching more and larger courses. Our students deserve access to full-time faculty and our current adjuncts, most of whom see teaching our students as a career, so there are full-time jobs and adequate resources. CT State needs to hire more full-time faculty if we're truly putting students first. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Are there any questions from members of the committee? Seeing none, I would just say I appreciate your mode of delivery. You did your level best to come in at under 3 minutes. Went a little over, but I was giving you an A for effort. Next up is Daniel George, followed by Will Little. Mr. George, do you want to proceed?
Yes, hello. Hi. Good afternoon, distinguished members of the Higher Education and Employment Advancement Committee. My name is Daniel Loftus-George. I'm the president of the Norwalk Conservatory of the Arts. I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person, but excited to chat with you virtually today. Thank you for the opportunity to testify in favor of Senate Bill 1412, an act authorizing the Norwalk Conservatory of the Arts to confer degrees. Norwalk Conservatory was founded in 2018 by theater industry creatives with the goal of creating a space that was equal parts training and opportunity. The conservatory is comprised of a faculty of some of the greatest artists currently working in theater and television. We're located in Norwalk, Connecticut. Our campus is in the backyard of the biggest theater city in the world. We operate as a space where the artists of today can train, audition for professional work, and grow simultaneously. The conservatory built the LINK program, which developed into a full 2-year conservatory that comprises Norwalk Conservatory today. From that program, we have over 60 alumni working on Broadway, national tours, and television film. We have more students on a Broadway stage than any school in the country. The Norwalk Conservatory offers 3 majors: musical theater, dance music theater, and television and film. Our students hail from 37 different states, and the college has been responsible for an insurgence of economic development in the Norwalk Wall Street area. We've been authorized by the Office of Higher Education to award associate's degrees and urge you to support this legislation that is the final step of our approval process and will allow us to provide a premier fine arts education and confer degrees to aspiring artists. Please ask me questions. I love talking about the school.
You're in luck. Senator Gedkar Wilcox is ready to ask a question.
Awesome. Hello.
Hello. Thank you so much for your testimony. A couple of questions. are there other programs in the state that are supporting the arts? How is this going to impact those programs? And where are you sort of drawing students from in particular? And what will the impact on the programs that are already running? Particularly, I'm thinking about our programs at our state universities and colleges. What will the impact be there?
That's a great question. There's so few arts jobs, so I think it's a really important question. First and foremost, I should tell you that I'm a Forbes 30 under 30 finalist in education. I've actually been in curriculum consultation for 15 years, and UConn is one of my schools. So I actually produced their senior showcase. I'm doing it this year. I've done it for many years in the past and work with them very closely. I don't feel like this program conflicts with any of those schools. Before we opened, we checked in with most of those schools to let them know that this is something that we wanted to create here in Norwalk. It is very, very specific and very niche. The state schools are obviously drawing 70% of their students from the state. We only have 3 students from Connecticut in the entire college. So we're drawing from 37 different states. Our students are hyper focused on working on Broadway. That is really the goal. Many of our students actually grew up on a Broadway stage. So they were in Lion King as kids. They were in Finding Neverland. We have that group of kids coming in now. They don't want to go far away. They want to be able to continue to auditioning for shows because they're local, right? They're able to get into New York City very easily. We're very close to New York City, being in Fairfield County, to explore those opportunities. In terms of musical theater, the only program that I'm familiar offering it is WestCon, and we work very closely with them. We share some faculty, students come to each other's performances. We don't really compete with those institutions.
And how do students sort of pay for this program? Are they self-funded? Are they getting support for this? I mean,
Yeah, it's a fair mix. So we actually have a number of students who are on full tuition rides. We have students on 50%. Everyone is on a scholarship actually of some kind. We have a lot of private donation, which is very helpful. And being in Fairfield County, it's obviously a very lucrative county. And initially, we built production in the area. So we built a haunted house initially that was very well attended and brought in thousands of dollars. We've done so with concerts with celebrity. And so we've been able to fundraise. We fundraise about 1.3 million every year.
and one last question. What are the sort of credentialing requirements, faculty there?
Yeah, so it'd be the same as any traditional college. Whenever there's a variance, we would ask permission from the OHE to allow that instructor. We do have a lot of instructors who are casting directors, who are talent agents, who are big directors, big actors, notable actors working in New York City. Obviously, our proximity to New York is really helpful there.
Is there any actual standard for it by the school that's required?
Of course. Yeah. So it'd be like any other school. They have to have a terminal degree. If they do not have a terminal degree, then they need to be have 3 years teaching experience within the field, and also have to be a notable member of the industry.
Thank you. Those are my questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for your questions.
There are other questions for seeing none. Thank you very much for your testimony. We appreciate you taking the time to talk to us.
Thank you for your time. I hope you come see a show. Take care.
If I could just ask for one thing, I don't see any written testimony. I don't know if you submitted any written testimony, but if you have something to submit in writing, that would be very helpful as this.
I do. Yeah.
It's always helpful to have something in our files from.
Absolutely. I submitted it through the OHE to Dr. C. Prasad, but I can send it directly to you. Is there, I'm not sure where to send it to.
Why don't you, we'll have someone from the committee contact you.
Okay.
Receiving that. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Okay. Next up is Will Littell. I would also like to say to folks who might be online or planning to testify remotely that eventually the committee clerk will send you an invitation to promote you to be a panelist and that gets you out of the waiting room and into the ability to testify. You need to accept that invitation to become a panelist in order to testify. Thank you very much. Mr. Littell, you can begin.
Hi, thank you very much. Good afternoon, Senate Chair Slapp and House Chair Haddad. and members of the Higher Education and Employment Advancement Committee. My name is William Mattel. I am a student at Wesleyan University, and I'm here today to testify in support of SB 1411, an act allowing students at institutions of higher education to live off campus. I'd like to thank the committee for raising this bill and taking the time to consider whether the state should address burdensome student housing costs. SB 1411 is essential to ensuring that students have the financial flexibility, personal development opportunities, and living arrangements that best suit their individual needs. Restrictive campus housing policies not only impose unnecessary financial burdens, but also limit students' ability to integrate into and contribute to their broader communities. I speak from personal experience. Colby Geddes, my classmate who spoke earlier today, and I have very similar experiences and opinions regarding student housing. For the last 2 years, I've been displaced in program housing since Wesleyan has too many students and not enough appropriate housing. My housing has isolated me from my friends, classmates, and mainly the rest of campus. Sophomore year, I was placed in the Well-Being House, which is a house that is supposed to promote sobriety and community, but ended up being a house of fellow sophomores who didn't get housing. We experienced a drive-by shooting outside of the Well-Being House and multiple car break-ins. This year, I'm in the Art House, where my car was looted. Luckily, public safety caught them in the act. I think community is what makes schools like Wesleyan so special, so it's very upsetting to see many kids lose that opportunity and face hardships that arise from these kinds of housing programs. This legislation is a necessary step towards reducing the financial strain on students, fostering personal development, and ensuring that colleges do not abuse their power by creating monopolistic housing policies, and especially from my own experience, safety. By providing students with the ability to choose where they live, we empower them to make decisions that best suit their academic and personal needs. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for your time. Are there any questions for Mr. Littell? I don't see any. Thank you very much for your testimony. We appreciate you sharing your perspective with us. Next up on my list is Claudia Leduc. That person was supposed to be remotely. I see a bunch of folks joining our room, but she's not one of them. I don't see Louise Simmons, who's supposed to be testifying remotely. I do see Shakima Glover, so we'll go ahead and proceed with you. Shakima, you want to turn on your camera and you're welcome to begin offering your testimony.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. I come here today to just explain the financial burden that I have encountered with attending Stone Academy. I had attended a Stone Academy and believing that I would become a nurse, a LPN. I bragged about becoming an LPN to my grandmother, who was 93, and it has left me, I would say, to have a mental burden. I can no longer attend school right now because of my financial aid. I'm still waiting for my financial aid to be, I would say, waived or discontinued, so that way I don't owe them. I've used up all my financial aid, my FAFSA, and I paid out of pocket so much money to Stone Academy in believing that the outcome would be that I would become a nurse and I'd be able to work full time in that that would be my career. And as you know, nursing, there's a shortage. I've traveled over an hour and a half to get to Stone Academy from where I live, which is currently Westchester. I've faced now my car. I drive a 2009 Nissan Maxima, and I would like to continue my education, but now I'm in the burden of when I get to where I have to go to. And if there's schools in New York who will offer me that, I would have to travel, and I just don't want to become dependent on my car breaking down. It has left such a financial burden to me because I'm unable to accomplish something that I believe that I would have been right now. If I would have been able, I paid so much money out of pocket to attend them. Every month they were harassing for their money, and now it has become just an adventure. It has become an adventure. And I believe that if you guys offer scholarships to students, it would really, really, really take off the burden and also take off the pressure of how are we going to be able to afford to go to school or to go back to school. I was already paying out of pocket $350 a month to attend Stone Academy. And now I'm not able to do that. Everything around me is becoming more money. I believe that the scholarships would help. It would at least have us feel that we are able to accomplish something, that the past 3 years, or 3 years now, that we thought maybe we would never be able to do. And there's so many students who are, saying, I don't think I'm going to go back to school. I don't think I'm going to do it. I don't think I can do this anymore. And it's not even just, it's not even when you ask them, so why don't you want to go back to school? Why do you feel like you won't be able to accomplish this? They always say, I have to work full time. I have to take care of my family. I invested so much money. I invested so much time. And I understand where they're coming from firsthand, because yes, we did invest so much money. And if I attend school knowing that I used all of my financial aid up, I have nothing else to help me. If I was looking at paying $350 to attend school at Stone Academy every month, I can only imagine how much more money now that I would have to pay out of pocket in order to attend a school to help me become the nurse that I know that I am and that I need to be.
I thank you very much for sharing your experience with you. If you have a couple more words to summarize the rest of your testimony, we welcome that, but your 3 minutes are up.
The scholarship would really benefit the students, the past students, the future students that plan to attend schools for healthcare. And it would just lift so much weight off of us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry for your experience. I mean, I think lots of folks were very surprised when an institution like Stone sort of collapsed as quickly as it did, and it certainly left a number of students wanting and in the lurch. So we appreciate you sharing your experience with us. Are there any other questions? I don't see any other questions. I'm looking. I think the next person signed up to testify is Bill Meyerson. I don't think he is online or in the room. So we'll move to Sam Pullman. Sam Pullman will be followed by Dr. Aaron Persad. Mr. Pullman, you can proceed.
Hi, how are you? Good afternoon, Senate Chair Slapp, House Chair Haddad, and members of the Higher Education and Employment Advanced Committee. My name is Sam Pullman. I'm a student at Wesleyan University, and I'm here today to testify in support of SB 1411, an act allowing students at institutions of higher education to live off campus. I would like to thank the committee for raising this bill and taking the time to consider whether the state should address burdensome student housing costs. SB 1411 is essential to ensuring that students have financial flexibility, personal development, opportunities, and living arrangements that best suit their individual needs. And restrictive campus housing policies not only impose unnecessary financial burdens, but also limit students' ability to integrate into and contribute to their broader communities. And as a student at Wesleyan University, I've faced significant challenges securing housing due to the university's lack of available on-campus spaces and restrictive off-campus policies, similar to Colby Geddes and Willitel. Despite actively searching for off-campus housing, which would have been a much more affordable option, I was denied the opportunity by the school, forcing me into the more expensive and inconvenient on-campus living arrangement. This situation has limited my flexibility and ability to navigate campus life. So this year, as a junior at Wesleyan, I am one of the only few upperclassmen who is still living in the double.
When they close?
And there was only
Go
one
ahead,
available
Sam.
scenario.
I'm
It's all
sorry. I'm
good.
sorry for the interruption. You can go ahead.
Yeah, this year as a junior at Wesleyan, I'm one of the only few upperclassmen who has to live in a double. There is only one available scenario on the entire campus where I would be able to live with my friends, and it required that my roommate from freshman and sophomore year and I lived in the same room that Colby Geddes was talking about that he lived in last year. It's not a dormitory. It's like a common space. My bed is the one that he was talking about with screws just all over it, like half a door, and like the ceiling's a little messed up, which is like it's fine that I get to live with my roommate, but it's not an ideal situation whatsoever. And the university's failure to accommodate all students fairly in the housing process has left me and many others frustrated and without viable alternatives. And while Wesleyan has a variety of cool housing options, and such as the many program houses that Will and Colby attested to earlier, its housing system is failing students by not providing enough on-campus options while simultaneously restricting access to more affordable off-campus housing. And this flawed process doesn't allow students who get screwed over in a housing lottery to potentially save money or live with other friends who also got screwed in communal spaces where they can have their own bed, their own space, instead of forcing to live in a double. Like I'm 22-year-old living in a double. And the university needs to address these issues by either expanding housing availability or easing restrictions on off-campus living to allow students more control over their expenses and living situations. I'll just wrap up and end it with certain people have been like very certain people have persevered to really get off-campus housing through many conversations, and it has sometimes worked out for them, but there's no rhyme or reason to who it works out for. Like myself and many of the people who are living in the art house this year have gone to great lengths last year to try to ensure an off-campus housing opportunity, and we were denied every single time, not given any leeway. Whereas a couple people just went to the school and got an off-campus house after begging for whatever reason. So I'd say the system's very flawed, and yeah, that's all.
Thank you very much for your testimony and for sharing your experience with us. Are there any questions by members of the committee? I don't see any. So thank you very much for your testimony. We appreciate your taking the time with us.
Thank you guys, appreciate it.
Dr. Aaron Persad, followed by Seth Freeman.
All right, hello, dear members of the Higher Education and Employment Advancement Committee. Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Aaron Persad. I am the Director of Bioastronautics at the International Institute for Astronomical Sciences. This institute was mentioned before in the testimony by our colleague, Sean Sipisand. What we're talking about here today is our support of Bill SB 1424 for our institute's ability to confer diplomas, degrees, and certificates in higher education, so master's and PhD levels. Myself, I have been an academic instructor for the past 16 years at R1 institutes like University of Toronto and MIT. And I have been with the IIAS since 2015. So for the past 10 years, we've been teaching courses in bioastronautics, human spaceflight, microgravity science research, and so on, all using facilities located in Groton, Connecticut. Our students have published research in peer-reviewed journals. They have gone on to pursue their own master's and PhD programs elsewhere because it's not offered currently at the IIAS. And at the employment track, our students have been hired by NASA to work in spacesuit systems, the Artemis Moon project, and various other commercial, orbital, and spaceflight companies. So we believe that we do have the ability to produce high-level candidates that are able to succeed in these PhD level and master level programs. And so once again, I'd like to reiterate my support for Bill SB 1424. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. I'm going to channel Senator Gadkar Wilcox, who actually had to step out of the room for just a moment, and ask you if you think that your program conflicts with any of the existing programs in the state of Connecticut.
Thank you for the question. To the best of my knowledge, this program is unique. We're the only program that I'm aware of that uses real commercial spacesuits, that we involve our students in the real research. And we're not just looking at spacesuits for spacesuits' sake. We're putting people in the spacesuits. We're using the facility at Survival Systems USA to develop methods for emergency egress. When a spacecraft lands or crashes in water, a person with a spacesuit has to egress that spacecraft. So all of that together, it's a very unique program. And the closest competitor I can think of would be NASA themselves. And they certainly are in need of this type of expertise. One example is astronauts may have to land in water from a parachute after they ditch their space vehicle. These are obviously contingencies, not nominal situations. NASA does not even do that type of testing. So it's a very unique program. The other uniqueness that I'll mention is we do microgravity parabolic flights. We work very closely with government agencies to offer this microgravity platform for our students to develop experiments and fly the experiments themselves in the aircraft. I'm only aware of one other program where that exists, and that's when I was at MIT and helping to develop such a program. Across the border in Canada, I was responsible for creating a student microgravity competition over there. And so you can sort of see the track record. I'm leaving these ripples. So I'm not aware of any other program like that in Connecticut.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your reference to Canada. Some might think of that as the 51st state. I think of it as a different country, not local. No, don't worry. No, doesn't compete.
Right.
What year were you founded?
We were founded in 2015, and my colleague, I think two spots from now, Jason Ramulo can comment more about our history.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your testimony. Are there any additional questions from members of the committee? Seeing none, I want to thank you very much for your time. We appreciate your testimony before us today.
Thank you very much.
Next up is Seth Freeman. He'll be followed by Michael Whaley.
Representative Haddad, members of the committee, my name is Seth Freeman. I'm the president of Congress of Connecticut Community Colleges, 4Cs, and a professor at CT State Capitol, where I've taught for over 20 years. Thank you for the opportunity today to testify in strong support of Senate Bill 1414. I provide a written testimony that goes into additional detail, but will summarize this afternoon the main reason this bill is so important. Today, our community college system relies on a majority part-time workforce, where nearly 75% of our teaching faculty are part-time. We rely on a majority part-time workforce with full understanding that this is not what is best for our students. Senate Bill 1414 will move our community college workforce from a majority part-time teaching workforce to a majority full-time workforce. Our union supports this because first and foremost, the research is clear. Higher rates of full-time faculty correspond to higher rates of student success. Studies have been mentioned already, how increased utilization of part-time faculty is associated with lower student retention, lower student graduation, lower student transfer. Studies show a direct relationship between diminished student-faculty interactions and diminished student outcomes. Second, our union supports Senate Bill 1414 because the overutilization of part-time faculty in our colleges is an example of racialized austerity. In our current public higher education system, there is a direct correlation between the race of the overall student body and the access to full-time faculty. When we compare UConn, our state universities, and our community colleges, we see that as the percentage of minority students increase, the percentage of full-time faculty decreases. I go into detail in my written testimony as well about my personal story and the monumental difference between working as a part-time faculty and a full-time faculty. I'll simply say that as a part-time faculty, I was awarded a second-class status. This second-class status denied me the opportunity to grow professionally and actualize my potential as an educator. Who do we hurt when we systematically deny faculty the ability to grow and actualize their potential? It's not just a faculty member. Our students are hurt, our economy is hurt, our state is hurt. My written statement also goes into the harm we cause our part-time workforce when we deny them healthcare benefits and stable full-time employment. Data from a 2023 survey of over 1,000 part-time faculty across CSU found that 50% of respondents report struggling financially, 28% report difficulty affording necessities, 15% found themselves dependent on government benefits, and 10% report living in housing precarity. This is how the state of Connecticut treats the faculty who teach our community college students. I'll end by saying Senate Bill 1414 is needed because the Board of Regents will not fix this longstanding inequity unless they are forced to. I want to repeat that. The Board of Regents will not fix this inequity unless they are forced to. This bill is designed to do that. Our working class, first generation, majority Black and brown students we serve deserve the same access to full-time faculty as any other students in higher education. We know this is not a controversial statement. We thank this committee significantly for Senate Bill 1414. We urge you to pass this bill out of committee once again. Thank you very much, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. I appreciate we have your written testimony as well, which goes a little bit more in depth on some of the stuff you're talking about. I just want to ask you about, there's some statistics floating around, and I just want to make sure I understand what they all mean. You say 75% of teaching faculty are part-time. I presume that means that there are 3 times as many adjunct faculty as there are full-time tenured faculty. Do you know what percentage of courses they currently teach?
So our current estimate is around 45%. The actual number of courses is around 45%.
Yeah, a previous testifier indicated that it was 41%. And I guess I just want to make sure that we're not regressing by picking 45% as a standard. You're comfortable with 45%, essentially says that we'll have a new standard ratio embedded in the first year of your next contract, but it might not change the status quo that much. That'll happen in subsequent years of the contract. Is that about right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, okay. And I just want to say, I mean, I cannot remember what the current rate is for an adjunct faculty member in terms of what they get paid. I don't know if it's variable, of course, for depending on the course. But you just want to share us what those rates look like and how many, because I mean, I think your point is very well taken about like how poorly we treat many of the folks who teach, you know, a sizable number of the, you know, credit hours at a community college. I think what we will hear is that the dollar amounts just can't add up to a decent living wage. But if you want to share the numbers, that'd be helpful.
For a 3-credit course, I believe the current rate is around $600 to $800. Which is you know, better than many other institutions, and many, certainly better than many private institutions, but because there are no healthcare benefits, that's the main problem, right? Our adjunct faculty are while given it, I would say perhaps a competitive rate, and to be transparent, certainly more competitive than Charter Oak State College, there are no healthcare benefits, and that is the biggest challenge. And there's no job security as well. So these are the main challenges.
Thank you. Are there any additional questions from members of the committee? Seeing none, thank you very much for your testimony.
Thank
you. Next up is Michael Whaley, followed by Jason Reimuller. Mr. Whaley, you can proceed.
Good afternoon. Thanks so much for giving me a few minutes, no more than 3, I understand, to talk with you all about SB 1411. This is a proposal about which you know, I and my colleagues have tremendous concern. We have just a little context. I have worked for nearly 40 years supporting student life at various colleges and universities. Some of these institutions have been medium-sized public schools where the majority of undergraduates were commuters, including Central Connecticut. And now for 30 years, I've been at Wesleyan University. And as a residential campus where students live and grow together over the course of their 4 years, the educational experience that Wesleyan and places like us in the state offer is much more robust and expansive. Our residential life experience is in fact central to the co-curricular learning and community building that takes place on our campus. And indeed, students learn as much from their co-curricular experiences as from their formal experiences in the classroom, the lab, and or the studio. Our residential model is based on progressively more independent living options as students progress through their tenure on campus. And so that takes them from traditional residence halls to theme houses and apartments, and finally to wood frame houses clustered in villages on our campus. We also, as you've heard earlier, have theme houses, and those are opportunities for groups of sophomores and juniors to live together around a common mission, be it based upon academic or personal interest. Specific to the proposal before the committee today, I should also note the existence of several privately owned Greek theme houses on our campus. And we do accommodate that option as long as the group agrees to follow Wesleyan's policies designed to maintain a safe and healthy living environment. Wesleyan meets students' full financial need, including room and board. Despite what you've heard earlier from a few of our students, we do have adequate housing for all of our students. And in fact, we guarantee housing to all of our students. And we are, of course, continuously working to improve and renovate our residences. Our students, of course, understand our residency requirement prior to enrolling, and most of them, I find over the course of my tenure here, look forward to their progression through our diverse residential experiences. Wesleyan, of course, exists within the larger Middletown community, and having all of our students living on campus helps us to address student behavioral issues that might negatively impact those living near our campus. And I'll pause there and just add that, you know, the description of his maintenance issues that Colby expressed earlier is, not something that we want any of our students to experience. And we're constantly working, to make sure that it's a quality experience for all of our 3,000 students on campus. I'll stop there, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate, that you're trying to fit a lot into 3 minutes. Can I ask you what percentage of your total student body are housed in university housing at Wesleyan?
Sure, that would be 100% or close to it. We do have a 4-year residency requirement. There are a small handful of students, because of their age or their family situation or specific needs for accommodations that they may have that we cannot accommodate, and so they are released to off-campus status. But that's typically fewer than, say, 10 or 12 out of our 3,000 undergraduates.
Yeah, thank you. And I appreciate you taking the time to sort of come here and offer your testimony on behalf of your university. Are there other questions by members of the committee? Senator Slapp.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for your time testifying. I'm going to begin with a non sequitur. I just want to applaud Wesleyan University for your leadership on legacy admissions. So thank you. You're a national leader, and I just couldn't help myself. So thank you for what you and your president and everyone does at Wesleyan, making that a very important stand, I believe. But alas, we do not have that bill in front of us right now. So just in terms of housing, I guess my question is that, how would you describe how important having students living on campus is to the financial position of Wesleyan versus I think both things can be true, that having students live on campus is important for a sense of community, right, and the culture and just the vitality of life on campus. At the same time, having students live on campus is and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but is probably pretty important to Wesleyan's finances. Would you agree with that, or could you kind of shed some more light on just the business model of schools and the importance of having students live on campus for room and board?
Sure. Yeah. Our overall budget, does take into consideration students paying the residential comprehensive fee, which includes room and board and, some other student life related expenses. So our overall economic model does rely on that income coming from those students who are able to pay it. And of course, our financial aid would pick up for any students who are unable to pay those charges. So it is part of our overall budget, certainly. But really, the reason that we have this requirement is because we feel strongly about the pedagogical impact of having all of our students living together during their entire time on campus.
Thanks very much. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, I guess I'm just going to follow up with one comment, which is I read this legislation and I certainly understand, the reason that students have, who have experienced some, have their experiences have asked us to do this. In my community, which is Mansfield, the university is currently coming into criticism because they're ending their guarantee that they will provide housing to seniors and juniors at the University of Connecticut. And so, as I look at the bill, I'm starting to look at it through a lens of a completely different community. The provisions of the bill would apply equally, as I read it, to all institutions of higher education. But I think the challenge for us is to try to figure out how to adapt to the many different sort of approaches to this that exist across different universities and colleges in Connecticut. So some would say that that's the choice, the flavor of each institution, I guess. And so there'll be something for us, our committee, to weigh as we think about proceeding with this legislation. Are there any additional questions or comments? Seeing none. Thank you very much for your testimony. We appreciate your time. Next up is Jason Reimuller, followed by Catherine Milton.
Hi. Distinguished members of the Higher Education and Employment Advancement Committee. My name is Dr. Jason Reimuller, and I'm the Executive Director of the International Institute for Astronautical Sciences. And I want to thank you for the opportunity to testify on behalf of our institute under SB number 1424. I'll give a very quick extension of the Institute. Dr. Prasad talked a little bit about our work in bioastronautics. But our mission is, we're a nonprofit, 501c3. Our mission is to provide a high-value immersive education with culturally diverse operational environments that enable professional research promoting multinational space exploration, science literacy, and the equitable and peaceful uses of outer space. So we're using that incredibly powerful opportunity of space to inspire human spaceflight to get people more involved in science. And that's what we do. We focus on astronautical sciences, flight test engineering, bioastronautics, spaceflight operations. We currently have organized 63 different credits, 4 certificate programs. We would like to be able to confer a master's degree on a lot of these topics. So what we have brought to Connecticut is largely possible with our partnership with Survival Systems USA. You'll have an opportunity to meet Marie Hanna soon, who is the president of that organization. There we've been able to build novel spacesuits. You know, the first first institute to be able to do that, to test and qualify, been able to do some unique human factor studies on that. We're looking to expand our facilities. What we do here in Connecticut is a neutral buoyancy laboratory, egress laboratory. We have in the Institute gravity offset labs, some electromechanical means of simulating reduced gravity, and parabolic flight, as Dr. Prasad alluded to, flight test engineering in a way that's accessible broadly. We've attracted researchers internationally from over 60 different countries. We've had students come to the US and to Connecticut for these, to address Senator Gadkar-Wilcox's concern. These are largely maybe about 95% is by student tuition that we fund. We also have program services addressing underrepresented minorities in science. We have Possum 13 for young women, Out Astronaut for LGBTQ, and Space for All Nations, that's incubating projects in emerging space nations, notably a STEM school in Guatemala. So we really try to focus on the social impact of space as an institute. We see what we do is very complementary in Connecticut. It's one of the reasons we are focused here in Connecticut, is because of the high quality of education, but also the ability for us to come in and complement the existing infrastructure and the educational landscape of the state. So I would be more than happy to talk about any questions. As far as research, we have 4 research centers, one in bioastronautics, one in flight research, one in space simulation, and one in space medicine. Proximity of Groton Airport with the infrastructure of Survival Systems is very attractive, present, and our future long-term goals. Our core values, science, stewardship, inclusion, it really embrace what we do. I talked a bit about inclusion, science, reducing barriers of access to facilities that allow our students to innovate in facilities that have only existed, say, in NASA, maybe Roscosmos before. We want to make this available, not just to Connecticut and the US, but the world, and bring people here to see what we have to offer. So more than happy to address any questions you might have, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you. Your colleague, Dr. Prasad, had previously indicated that you were founded in 2015. I guess between now and then, that's when you've been developing your program and establishing their certificate programs. What brings you here now is the desire to offer, I think you said, a master's degree program. Do you offer an associate's or a bachelor's degree program? Is that in your plans?
Yes, we right now are focused on 4 professional certificates and a master's degree that would be a thesis option that focuses on a lot of the concentrations initially in bioastronautics. We also seek flight test. Flight test as a discipline that is kind of a unique mix of science, engineering, and operations, and we try to find a way to make it accessible to civilians at an affordable cost, something that's historically only been available at high cost or through military programs.
Thank you. And just one last question. What originally attracted you to Connecticut? How is it that that this is the place that you decided to establish your school?
Well, we see a lot of complementary potential. Now, the initial contact has been through Survival Systems. We saw a facility and we saw a champion in Maria Hanna that saw the long-term vision and what we could bring to the Northeast, and specifically here in Connecticut. So this is something that the investment in higher education, but also something in a region that feels underrepresented in the kinds of research that we want to do, but also has a lot of potential in both industry and research and education.
Thank you. Are there any additional questions from members of the committee? Seeing none, I want to thank you very much for your time and for sharing your details about your program with us.
Yeah, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Next up is Catherine Milton. She will be followed by Marjorie Ross. Catherine Milton, you can proceed.
All right. Thank you very much, and thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. Senator Slapp and Representative Haddad and esteemed members of the Higher Education and Employment Advancement Committee. I'm Catherine Milton, a professor of English at CT State Community College, Norwalk, and I'm happy to be testifying in support of Senate Bill 1414 to reduce the over-reliance on part-time faculty at our community colleges. Legislators Slapp and Haddad might remember the last time I was here, I was trotting out the statistics on their undergraduate institutions and what percentage of classes were taught by full-time faculty and what their graduation rates were. I won't do that again. So at my campus, a majority of students are African American and Hispanic, and their chance of having a full-time faculty teach a first-year math or English class is 31%, because we have to rely on adjuncts to teach 69% on average of those freshman general education courses. Those students are being denied the benefits that come with the opportunity to connect with full-time faculty in the classroom, but also the hallways, in the student clubs, office hours. All of this increases student engagement, and multiple studies have shown that it is more likely a student will persist and graduate the more engaged they are with the college beyond the classroom. I don't know if you know, adjuncts refer to themselves as freeway flyers because they have to string together teaching assignments at so many colleges, day or night, and nobody wants to be a freeway flyer up and down 95 or 91 in Connecticut when every hour is rush hour. Full-time faculty enjoy the institutional resources. We have time, we have space, we have local knowledge of who to talk to if you want to get something done, and we can pass that on to students and try to smooth the paths that end up being when small obstacles like where's the registrar's office gets in the way of completing a course. As my comrade Seth Freeman would say, let's be clear, our adjunct faculty are dedicated, talented teachers and first-rate scholars. They do all of this despite the obstacles mentioned here today by many of the people who offered testimony. I mean, they are like Ginger Rogers to the full-time Fred Astaire. They do everything full-timers do, but they do it backwards and in high heels. But nevertheless, there are real demonstrated negative effects on student outcomes when you over-rely on part-time faculty, and I was surprised at the depth of the data on diminished graduation and retention rates, decreased transfers from 2 to 4 years colleges, a student less likely to persist into their second semester. It's particularly fragile in the first semester, and the differences are very noticeable in the first semester. And, you know, graduation rates, transfer rates, for better or worse, these are the red flag issues that the BOR and our legislators wave when it's time to find money to improve higher education in Connecticut. And if a higher ratio of full-time faculty leads to student success and improvement in those red flag areas, And if you want college educated young people pouring into the workforce in Connecticut, let's put the money where it's proven to work. Please support this bill to require a phased in reduction of the over-reliance on adjunct faculty at our community colleges. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Are there questions from members of the committee? I do not see any, so thank you very much for sharing your perspective with us. Next up is Marjorie Ross. She's supposed to be joining us remote. Oh, you're here. I have yours remotely, but you're sitting right in front of me. You can proceed. You'll be followed by Bethany Zemba.
SB 1414, an act concerning the percentages of courses taught by part-time faculty at CT State Community College. Part-time faculty piece together schedules at multiple schools without knowing if they will be employed the next semester and without health insurance. And it really is a shame to tell our students to value education when some of our most educated instructors struggle to make ends meet. This reality belies the value of education that we profess. This semester, spring 2025, 58% of class time in the biology department at Manchester is staffed by part-time faculty members. I would like to explain why we could really use some of those positions to be converted to full-time positions and how this is affecting our biology classes. Our biology sections have few empty seats, and we've been asked to add additional sections to many of our courses. However, we've not been able to meet the request. One reason is that our full-time and part-time faculty are maxed out on teaching contact hours. Permit me to dive into the weeds so I can explain what's happening with course scheduling. Part-time biology faculty can teach up to, but not including 9 contact hours per semester. Typically, a part-time faculty member is assigned to a lecture with a matching lab with 3 contact hours each, and that gets them to 6 contact hours. They can't be assigned to teach another full lab or lecture, or they would hit 9 contact hours, which isn't allowed. It's been increasingly difficult to recruit part-time faculty, and we continue to lose long-term part-time faculty to non-academic positions with job security and benefits. Our department has recently resorted to assigning part-time faculty to teaching half classes. So an instructor might, for example, have a lecture lab combo for 6 and then teach another lab for the first half of the semester only. And then a different instructor will teach the second half of that lab section for the rest of the semester. Occasionally, this results in students having 3 different professors when they sign up for one biology class, one for the lecture, one for the first half of lab, and then one for the second half of the lab. While our instructors communicate expertly and work extra hours to ensure continuity for students, this is ultimately a suboptimal teaching arrangement. Our part-time instructors obviously have diverse lives and needs, but many are happy to teach any extra hours that we offer because of their tenuous employment status. However, it would be better for many of them and for our students if we could hire some part-time instructors into full-time positions. I really do anticipate that splitting classes between instructors will become more common as we try to teach more sections for students who need them as prerequisites for allied health, nursing, and physician assistant programs. SB 1414 supports our part-time instructors who work hard and deserve stability and benefits, as well as our community college students reaching for knowledge and for in-demand health careers. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. I'm happy to field any questions.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Are there questions from members of the committee? Thank you for hanging in with us and offering your testimony. We appreciate your sharing
Thank you.
your perspective with us. Next up is Bethany Zemba joining us remotely. She'll be followed by Maria Hanna. Zemba, you can proceed.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for having me here today. My name is Bethany Zemba. I'm the Vice President of Strategy and Community Relations and Chief of Staff for President Olian, and also Secretary to the Board of Trustees. Thank you for this opportunity to offer testimony on SB 1411, an act allowing students at institutions of higher education to live off campus. Quinnipiac University strongly opposes this bill. We firmly believe living on campus provides a structured and supportive environment that is crucial for the academic success as well as the personal development of students. Right now, the way that college campuses often interact, which is true at Quinnipiac, is there's a intentional integration of learning and living that assists in the development of social support networks that play a very vital role in helping students adjust to college life and thrive when they're here on campus. As we have returned to more traditional modes of education post-COVID, on-campus living plays a crucial role in supporting students' overall well-being. Many of you probably have heard about the loneliness epidemic among college-age students. It's become a significant concern with profound implications for both their mental and physical health. Studies have shown that nearly 2/3 of college students report feeling lonely, and these students are over 4 times more likely to suffer from severe psychological distress. Loneliness is not just an emotional state, but it's been linked to increased risks of heart disease, stroke, suicide, and our on-campus living is an antidote to these risks. When living on campus, our students work together as part of the Bobcat family. We have targeted programming that's a living learning community that brings together students with similar interests, passion, and academic pursuits in residential halls, and have a shared, residential environment that integrates completely with their academic goals. We have a university wellness center. It plays a vital role in supporting the health and well-being of our students. They have immediate availability to a comprehensive range of services, including medical care, mental health counseling, and wellness education. And all of these things are really important to their success. And when they live on campus, they have quick and easy access to these services, especially in a crisis situation. Living on campus provides a safe and secure environment. Many of our students tell us that they are, it's part of the reasons why they pick Quinnipiac, is knowing that they're going to have the security of safe housing for the first 3 years that they're on campus. They integrate, again, their clubs and organizations seamlessly with what they're studying in the classroom. In the past, we've had students live off campus before we had the 3-year requirement, and that led to a lot of complaints from Hamden residents regarding disruptive behavior of students living off campus. It was a huge win for the town and for the university when we brought our students back to campus. We've had a precipitous decrease in complaints from Hamden taxpayers because when the students live on campus, they are part of our student code of conduct, enabling a more controlled and secure environment. And we can just provide more structured support and supervision that requires the students to adhere to community standards of behaviors. Additionally, living off campus can expose students to potential risks such as higher living costs, unreliable housing conditions, increased commute times, and students and families, they really appreciate that we have this, that we save 3 years housing. I do want to importantly note that Quinnipiac has a process for approving on-campus housing exceptions for students who seek to live off campus because of financial hardship. Students can request an exception detailing their reasons for seeking off-campus housing, and it can be financial hardship, it could be a medical or disability related need, or other compelling personal circumstances. And the goal of this is to ensure that all students have the opportunity to fully engage in the on-campus experience, while also accommodating those with legitimate needs for alternative housing arrangements. In conclusion, maintaining on-campus residency requirements for students beyond their first academic year ensures a supportive, safe, and enriching college and developmental experience. It fosters academic success, personal development, and a strong sense of community. I urge you to oppose this bill. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much for your testimony. You have a 3-year residency requirement then. What percentage of your student body do you house in university housing?
So it applies only to our undergraduate student population. We have about 7,000 undergraduate students, and it is for our first, second, and third-year students. So it's not the full 7,000 because the seniors, we do think that that's a great time for them to experience living off campus.
So does that mean of your undergraduate student population, you house 75% of them, or is the percentage higher? Do seniors have an option of living?
Seniors and graduate students do have the option, and some of them do take us up on it because they enjoy living on campus.
Right. Thank you. Are there any additional questions from members of the committee? Seeing none, thank you very much for your testimony. We appreciate your.
Thank you. I appreciate being here. Thank you.
Next up is Maria Hanna. She will be followed by Terencia Riddenauer.
Hello, good day. My name is Maria Hanna, and I am the President and CEO of Survival Systems. I'd like to thank the distinguished members of the Higher Education and Employment Advancement Committee on this opportunity to provide testimony in support of Bill 1424. Through the bill, IIAS seeks approval from the General Assembly with the intent of being able to confer the world's first MS degree in astronautical science and 4 professional certificates. You've heard Dr. Reibmuller testify earlier. Then one of the reasons that they were drawn to Connecticut was Survival Systems. We are a woman-owned, minority-owned corporation, and we've been at the forefront of aviation safety and survival training for all branches of the military, all aviation public safety entities, and commercial aviation. We've been doing it for 26 years, and in those extensive years of work with DoD, we have sought opportunities to expand our mission, and that is to enhance and preserve workers' lives wherever and whenever possible. Space had not been at the forefront of what we had considered until Dr. Reibmuller and I sat down in 2014-15 and began discussing his vision for the future and how it fit with my vision of us being able to help survivability in all of the areas that we're able to touch. So our partnership and support with IIAS started in 2015 as a collaborative project. We were trying to vet the viability of establishing a scientific resource to the civil spaceflight operators. With the original program that we sought and with the expanded programs today, we continue to seek to educate students on the landing and post-landing phase of crewed space missions. The studies involve considering both nominal and contingency scenarios, something that Dr. Prasad alluded to earlier. Training simulating side hatch and docking hatch egress procedures and varying lighting and sea state conditions using a boilerplate Orion mock-up as well as parachute drop scenarios. They all incorporate underwater egress training for the participants, something which is not unavailable. Outside of government space agency, it really is a spaceflight focused emergency operations training that is not existent anywhere else. Researchers, academia, or civil spaceflight operators simply do not have access to the resources that the program that IIAS has put together with our support and with our training operation in Connecticut. The courses that Tess and Harvard developed for the programs have built an industry database to date and has led to improved systems, operations, and safety to all involved in the civil space industry. As presented earlier by OHE, the highly specialized programs offered by IIAS are not offered in academia today. There was no response regarding concerns given to OHE pertinent to the programs offered. As a military spouse, I have always been very proud of the large footprint improvements that we have brought to DoD aviation survivability. As an engineer, I am very proud of our contributions to the improvement and enhancement that our programs have brought to the fields in which we are seeking your support and approval for the conferring of a degree and professional certificates. State approval would formally recognize the value of the education that IIAS provides. No other institution provides the access and expertise that their collective programs offer. As a Connecticut resident and business owner, I would be proud of having grown resources for the civil space industry that highlight Connecticut. IIAS chose us in Connecticut to pursue this with. We chose Connecticut as our base of operations in 1999 because of the state's vision and encouraging growth and investment in the state. Connecticut has proven time and again of their ongoing commitment to leading the way, often in the industries that we support, military aviation training and renewables, specifically wind training. Approval of this bill, 1424, would again demonstrate Connecticut's vision and commitment to our future. Thank you for allowing me the time to express our support of this bill, and I'm open for any questions.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Are there questions for this person? Don't see any questions, and so I'll thank you very much for your testimony and for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next up is Terencia Ridenour, followed by John Raz.
Hello, my name is Terencia Ridenour. How are you? I just want to say Stone Academy closing has pushed me back and succeeded in my nursing career, but of course I did not stop. I am currently at Goodwin University, finishing my nursing career in RN. Even all the scholarships and grants will help me alleviate my financial burden on me and also with my classmates to help them get back to school, because sometimes being that our loans are not canceled out at the moment, it's hard for people to get back to school and get the ball rolling with, paying for school, because it's very expensive. I have a passion for nursing. I have just a little bit about me. I've been in the nursing field since I was 16 years old. I went to Stone Academy to to try and become a LPN and then become a RN. But of course, that didn't happen with it closing 20 months with me into the program. I do believe that the scholarships and grants will help me because right now I have a whole bunch of financial problems due to the loans that are not canceled out with Stone Academy closing. It's the process is taking forever to get these loans closed out, and scholarships and grants will really help me at the moment.
Thank you very much for sharing your experience with us. As I said earlier to the your I guess a classmate, your former classmates at Stone Academy. I have a lot of sympathy for the folks who sort of had this occur to them, and I appreciate you're taking your time to sort of share with us what you think might be helpful to you as you continue down the path of becoming a nurse. So thank you very much. Are there any questions? Seeing none, I'll thank you very much for your testimony, and we'll go on to John Ross, and after that, we'll hear from Declan Welch.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairperson, Representatives, Senators, and committee members. I'm speaking in reference to SB 1414. My name is John Ross, and I'm a proud member of 4C's SEIU 1973 and a part-time lecturer at CT State Community College, Nautical Valley, where I teach Painting and art appreciation. In addition to being a full-time artist, I also teach at Tufts University, and I've taught at as many as 3 institutions in one term. I currently teach a 4-4 load. I'm here today to stress the urgent need for more full-time faculty positions and stronger contracts for part-time lecturers. With over 20 years in higher education across various roles, I have firsthand experience with the realities of this system. Part-time faculty teach over 40%, as we've heard before already, of the credits at CT State. In my own department, more than 78% of the courses are taught by contingent faculty. This is not unique to CT State schools, and it creates instability, not just for instructors, but also for students. We know that students benefit from continuity, from faculty who have the time and institutional support to mentor, advise, and guide them. But despite our dedication, part-time faculty often lack resources, office space, and compensated time to provide this kind of support. Our working conditions are our students' learning conditions. Community colleges primarily serve first-generation, low-income students who need stability in their education. As a first-generation Latinx queer artist, I know all too well the barriers that our students face. What message do we send them when their first instructors are in precarious employment situations and don't know if they'll be back next semester? How can students build relationships and trust that foster success? This isn't just about faculty, it's about Connecticut's economic future. Investing in full-time faculty is an investment in workforce development and student success. For every dollar students invest in their education, they gain $5.50 in higher future earnings with an annual return of more than 20%. CT State added $3 billion to Connecticut's economy last year alone. Faculty stability and institutional success are directly linked. Research shows that faculty support significantly influences students' motivation and retention. I urge you to expand full-time faculty positions and implement longer, more stable contracts for part-time lecturers. These steps will strengthen our classrooms, support our students, and build a stronger Connecticut. I want to thank the dedicated educators and all the support staff who show up every day for our students. Now it's time for our legislators and our institutional leaders to show up for us. I also just wanted to answer a question that Senator Slapp asked earlier and just refer to, firstly, just to clarify that the MFA is generally the terminal degree for visual arts and design, media arts, performing arts, and creative writing. I did some quick research. So in spring of 2023, Middlesex Community College reported 42 full-time faculty members, with half holding a doctoral or terminal degree. Additionally, there were 113 part-time faculty members, but the percentage of those with a terminal degree was not specified. So thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much for your testimony and for adding that additional piece of information. Are there any additional questions by members of the committee? Seeing none, thank you very much for for testifying in front of us. Next up is Declan Welch,
Thank you.
followed by David Schlossberg.
Hi, how are you? I'm Declan Welch. I just want to thank the committee for having us here today and hearing us out. I'm here as a strong supporter of Senate Bill 1411 because I have personally experienced the consequences of a university monopoly on student housing. I attend Wesleyan University, one of the most expensive schools in the country, yet last year I was placed in university-owned housing that was not only overpriced but also substandard. Upon move-in, I found my assigned house had no air conditioning in the August heat, spiders that bit me at night, and squirrels in the walls. Our room was a converted library with an immovable dividing wall, which awkwardly split the space, wall-to-wall bookshelves, which took more of our space, and a broken boarded-up window, which left glass on the floor and my roommate's bed. Despite paying thousands for a top-tier education, we were stuck with substandard housing, because Wesleyan requires students to live in university-owned residences, leaving us with no alternatives and no leverage. And while I understand a lot of my classmates have said that before, I wanted to sort of respond to some of the earlier points from Wesleyan, because we do understand their message of living and growing together as a community, and that is important. But it's simply not the reality most students are moving into in the fall. Many students are pushed to the edges of campus where they're isolated from the rest of their classmates. Me and my roommate can tell you 20, 30-minute walk home from hanging out at a friend's house. And I'd also like to make it very clear that Wesleyan's promise of housing is not a promise of, it's not a promise of an acceptable living situation. It's a promise of a bed. For us, the solution is simple: competition. If the students were allowed to look off campus for more housing, more affordable options, safer, better maintained options, there would be accountability on the part of the school to improve their own housing. But since there is no accountability, there is no reason for them to improve. Students will continue to be pushed to the edge of campus in unsafe, poorly maintained housing. This isn't just about comfort, it's about fairness and basic living standards. Universities should not be allowed to charge premium prices while forcing students to accept subpar conditions. This bill ensures that students have a choice and that universities have incentive to improve. I urge you to support this legislation and put accountability on private universities in Connecticut. And I'd really appreciate any questions. Thank you guys again for your time.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Are there any additional questions for Mr. Welch? I don't see any, so thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it. Next
very
up
much.
is David Schlossberg, followed by Nicholas Orfanos.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairman Slapp and Haddad and members of the Higher Education and Employment Advancement Committee. I'm David Schlossberg. I'm here in my capacity as counsel for the hundreds of former Stone Academy students who have been left in the lurch based on the closure. We're here in support of Raise Bills 7097 and 7998. As the committee may know, there were litigations that actually have been settled now, and they were court approved last week by Judge Pearson in the Waterbury Superior Court. But one of the acknowledgments in the settlement was that there's certain relief for these students that we couldn't get in the courtroom that required legislative action. So you've heard from this morning from Shakima Glover, you've heard from Terencia Ridenour. They were class plaintiffs. There are others who wanted to testify. They're at work. And you've got some 40 letters that came in the last 36 hours. They're still suffering. They're still stuck because the credits that they had, and imagine you get to the end of your schooling and the school closes and you can't do anything with the credits and they're worthless. You can't transfer them or anything. So in order to deal with that, the normal path, I think, would be a teach out. The state would ordinarily step in and provide a teach out and a benefit here. Because of circumstances at Stone Academy, we couldn't do that here. And then when there was a teach out at Griffin Hospital, it was offered in the daytime, full time, and many of these students, most of them need an evening option and something that's part time. So what we are proposing here in this bill is to have scholarships that will allow the students the ability to expand the menu of nursing and healthcare options, because there's just not enough bandwidth to be able to educate these students for an LPN, that it would be free of charge, and that therefore we could really let them advance, help them to advance, because this was just something we couldn't do in the state court. It's also serves, and it's interesting, it's the Higher Education and Employment Advancement Committee. And what we're talking about is advancement in the nursing industry. And there is a shortage here. So not only are we helping this cohort of students, but we are also helping to advance nursing. With the committee's permission, my colleague, Tim Cowan, is number 36 on the list. Could I turn it over to him, even though we have a written testimony, however brief? I just thought it would be helpful. We're both here to be able to answer questions and to provide some testimony to.
If he can summarize his testimony, we can't afford you the full 3 minutes in that instance, but you can go ahead quickly.
Absolutely, and I appreciate the opportunity to testify. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to testify. I just wanted to touch on, both raised bills briefly. So 7098 relates to reimbursement of tuition expenses. This fills the gap that was left by the 2023 amendment. It reflects the practical reality that the 2023 amendment meant to address, which is credits that are unusable. No other school in Connecticut, New York, Massachusetts, anywhere is accepting any of these credits. So Raise Bill 7098 seeks to fulfill the same goal that the 2023 amendment did, just now reflecting the practical realities. As for Raise Bill 7097, I just wanted to very briefly discuss how we got here. We did a lot of legwork. We've talked to hundreds of students. We've talked to educators across the state. We've talked to providers in hospitals and clinics to get a better, more practical sense of what students need, what institutions can provide, and what providers need. And the overwhelming answer was a diversity of options, ability to study in different programs, to go to different places, so we don't overwhelm the systems that are currently in place, while also helping fulfill the needs of Connecticut in the healthcare systems across the entire state. I want to just thank the Attorney General's office for their written submission, and you have the opportunity to review that as well. That kind of aligns with our perspective that this has great potential to help hundreds of students, and it has the great potential to help the state of Connecticut. And we're both here to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much. You anticipated a question, and you've answered almost all of it. But I just want to say, around the tuition refunds for former Stone Academy students, I think this is 7098. This is the funding that would come from, is it the Student Protection Fund?
Student Protection Account, yes.
Student Protection Account. What do we do before, and why was that not complete? What additional population needs to be accommodated and is accommodated in this legislation?
Yes, so just to provide a brief overview, prior to the 2023 amendment, the way that this classically worked is when a school shut down, any courses that the students were actively enrolled in but were unable to complete due to the closure were refunded through the Student Protection Account. And that account is funded by the schools themselves. Because of the unique circumstances with Stone Academy and the audit that then invalidated certain credits, the 2023 amendment was provided to say, okay, those credits that were deemed invalid, those also may be reimbursed from the same account, the Student Protection Account. This Raised Bill 7098 just looks at what the reality is. Because no institution is accepting any credits, it's just stepping into the space of the 2023 amendment to say, in reality, no credits were valid, no school finds them valid, so any remaining out-of-pocket tuition expenses, monies paid by the student, not from student loans, we're authorizing the Office of Higher Education to reimburse these students for those remaining credits that just have not been accounted for by the other two mechanisms.
Thank you. And then my only other question, and it's sort of a conundrum, maybe, is more like I'm not sure it has an answer. The other legislation establishes a scholarship program for the students. How many students are there total in
the entire class? There are 981. in this subclass of students that we would estimate to take advantage of this program, we estimate it to be approximately 500.
Okay. So this allocates or appropriates $10 million to the support program. Just put that in perspective, and this is what I'm entirely sympathetic to the facts that are present here, but our state scholarship program, the Roberta Willis Scholarship Program, for every other student in the state of Connecticut, is currently funded at $24 million. And that is, part of the sort of budget reality that we face moving forward. Now, we actually have a legislation that would increase that, because we understand that that's inadequate. But I mentioned that just to sort of say that this is unfortunately going to end up competing with a lot of other dollars and a lot of other priorities, and doesn't speak to the value of the program or the need that it would fit, but just the sort of fiscal reality faced by the legislature right now. Didn't know if you had any comment or to make about that. I know that there are other questions by members of the committee.
Representative Haddad, we're mindful of that. And I think one of the things that we would like to make clear to the chairs and the committee is that we want to engage in a discussion. And I'll give you some examples. It might be, first of all, we don't expect 500 people to apply to a program on day one. These are working women taking care of kids and elderly parents, and life gets in the way. So it might be that we start a program and maybe it's spread out over budget years. In other words, I think there are ways to think about this. What we did, just so you know where the number came from, we estimated the 500. We took the average cost of programs in the Connecticut Community College system, from a phlebotomist to an LPN and so on, and we came up with a number. I think in reality, the number of students who would take advantage of this is probably lower than that, and it's going to be spread out over time. So we want the committee to know that this is a discussion point. We want to sit down and see how we can make this work, because these students need the help. And we don't want that to be a barrier to the help that they need.
Thank you for your response. Senator Slapp?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks for coming in. Good to see you. So I want Stone Academy students to be made whole, and I want Stone Academy to pay for it, or what's left of them, right? Does your settlement that you achieved and the legislation that we passed a couple years ago, which I understand why it's turned out to be inadequate in some ways, does those two things coupled with the scholarship piece that it's funded through that OHE fund, does that accomplish that goal?
Senator Slapp, it doesn't, and I'll tell you why. First of all, just as a little bit of sort of color for this, in the litigation, with the under the supervision of a magistrate judge in the federal court and a superior court judge in Waterbury, we looked under every rock and every place for every penny we could get out of the private defendants. And I can tell you that we felt with great confidence that we had gotten, if we could gotten more, we would have, we made them stretch, we made them work to get that. That's what there is. What that was intended to do is there was a delay here. You had all of these students who were hoping to graduate, and they had the loss of earning capacity. Most of them are still in limbo 2 years later. So that's that piece. The other piece is from the Student Protection Fund, that just would reimburse for out-of-pocket tuition costs. But the problem is that in terms of re-engaging in school, if they would have otherwise had a teach-out opportunity, they don't have it really now, and there's really not enough to accommodate them. So this is an effort to try to find a solution that allows them to complete their education, and it's not provided for in what we've done before, however well-intentioned, and I think everybody's been working to try to do the right thing here. It's just hasn't completely addressed the need. Does that answer, Senator?
Yeah, it does. The healthcare fund, the cap up to 10 million, where would that, in your, the scenario that you're contemplating, that would come from general appropriation, state appropriation, is that correct?
Well, we made a lot of suggestions about that. I'll give you an example. One of the, COVID was sort of a factor in all of this, right? This all happened during COVID. We were aware that there were COVID funds that were distributed this past year, and that there's another 40 million, 20 million to UConn and 20 million to the Connecticut Community College system that was available. I don't know whether any of that is available because it really is something. And there was a lot more. I think the community college system asked for 65 million and they got 80 million, right? So the point is, we made suggestions along the way to find money that was already there and wouldn't necessarily be new money. One other thing I will suggest, the last time that I looked at the Student Protection Fund, I think the balance in that fund was over $2 million. Now, what this committee would decide to do with that, what OHE would decide to do with that is another thing. But again, that's funded by private institutions, some of that money by Stone Academy. So we want to be creative. We want to go find something that we can make work. But those are some suggestions that we had made.
Do any of the people who you represent, Stone Academy, former Stone Academy students, do they have student loans that they're paying currently?
Yes, and that's been a huge problem. It's been a huge problem because they've been in a catch-22. If you say all my credits aren't valid, then I think you have to do that so that you can get forgiveness from the federal government. And there's this catch-22 that's been going on, and so many of them have not been reimbursed. So this idea that they would be able to come up with money, I mean, even Terencia, who testified, they're all stuck.
They're still paying student loans now.
Yeah, I can address that a little bit further. Many have a deferment until many of those deferments expire in a few months.
Yeah.
I have personally spoken with representatives from the federal government, to try to clarify these various relief mechanisms. And, students have applied under three, really. There's total loan forgiveness, where you say all your credits are invalid. There's partial loan forgiveness, where you base it on your audited transcript and say, this is the number of credits that have been deemed invalid. Therefore, I get this portion back. And then there's the fraud exception. The Attorney General's office is pursuing a total fraud exception. Only one of those has been granted in the past number of years. We're fully behind that, but the likelihood is minimal. Students can also apply for the fraud exception, which is a 30-page or so application. We have advised students on their own, do their research, which one makes the most sense. Here's the phone numbers, here's the applications. Many, if not most, students have applied for student loan forgiveness. The process has just taken a very long time. I personally have not spoken to any student who has yet been approved for student loan forgiveness, partial, total, fraud, none of those. So the fact is that they're not currently paying, most of them. They have a deferment program, but that is going to expire. They have to re-up that program. While there is still pending loans, when I've spoken with these students, they're unable to get new loans. They just don't have the appropriate credit or whatever to get additional monies. And that's part of the reason that they've been frozen where they are, unable to enroll in new programs.
We have a relatively new state program that pays off student loans for a number of folks who are eligible. And I wonder if Stone Academy students are currently eligible for that. And if not, maybe that's something that we could look at, because it seems like they would be, that would make a lot of sense. So anyway, we'll maybe continue those conversations. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any additional questions from members of the committee? Seeing none, thank you very much for your testimony.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Back to the list. I see waiting patiently, Nicholas Orfanos. You're up next. You'll be followed by Christy Piat.
Great, thank you. Good afternoon, Senate Chair Slapp, House Chair Dodd, and members of the Higher Education and Employment Advancement Committee. My name is Nicholas Orfanos. I'm a student at Wesleyan University, and I'm here today to testify in support of Senate Bill 1411, an act allowing students at institutions of higher education to live off campus. Before beginning, I want to mention that my classmate, Claudia LeDuc, planned on testifying earlier today, but she was unable to because of conflict with class. I would like to thank the committee for raising this bill and taking the time to consider whether the state should address burdensome student housing costs. Senate Bill 1411 is essential to ensuring that students have the financial flexibility, personal development opportunities, and living arrangements that best suit their individual needs. As a student at Wesleyan, I've lived in housing that is not equivalent to the extremely high prices that are charged for room and board. Earlier, you heard my roommate Declan Welch testify, and to reiterate some conditions of our sophomore year room, we were placed in the art house, a program house that we did not intend to live in. Our room had double doors that did not lock. Upon arrival, the window next to my bed was boarded up and had remnants of glass all over the bed and floor. The walls of the room were all bookshelves, taking up unnecessary space and showing that this room had surely been a library at some point. The house itself had a rodent problem and further issues regarding the heating and cooling. Surely the educational benefits that Wesleyan emphasizes as a point for all students living on campus are thrown out the door when placed in any such program houses on Washington Street, which is distanced from all major classrooms and student buildings. Wesleyan has voiced that the 100 or so beds that these houses contain are planned to be moved elsewhere, which will only prolong the current housing crisis by forcing upperclassmen into unfavorable housing elsewhere on campus. I feel that as long as students can only live on campus and Wesleyan has no competition on the housing market, there will be no incentive for the university or any private universities to make improvements to their student housing. I strongly encourage the committee to endorse Senate Bill 1411, supporting the right of all Connecticut students to select housing that aligns with their academic and extracurricular pursuits. I'd like to thank you all for your time and consideration today.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Are there any questions from members of the committee? I don't see any. Thank you very much for your testimony. If you could also just share with your classmate, Claudia LeDuc, we're sorry we couldn't get to her at a time when she could testify.
I will. Thank you.
Next up is Christy Payat. I'm probably hacking your name, but maybe I'm close. You'll be followed by Matthew Keeney. You have to unmute and then you can start.
Hi. Good afternoon, Senator Slapp, Representative Haddad, and esteemed members of the committee. My name is Christy Pyatt. I am a resident of East Lyme, Connecticut, a part-time faculty member at CT State Community College, and a parent of a community college student. I'm an elected member of the part-time, an elected representative for the part-timers on my campus with the 4Cs Union. I am here today to voice my strong support for SB 1414, which addresses the urgent need to hire full-time permanent faculty at our community colleges. As a part-time faculty member, I have worked across several locations within the CSCU system since 2012. I have stepped in during times of critical need, including covering for a colleague on maternity leave and taking on an interim full-time position twice, once for a full year and once for one semester. I did that during the COVID-19 pandemic and again after the merger. That position, which I took twice, has now been traded around from adjunct to adjunct in my department for years, which has yet to be permanently filled. Others today have spoken of the gig economy, the exploitation, the under-resourced working conditions of our part-time faculty. I would like to address something slightly different. I'd like to draw attention to the risks. Part-time faculty are experts in their field, dedicated professionals who work hard to support students. However, the college makes no effort to treat them as full employees. Our work is contingent, temporary, and under-resourced with no dedicated work tools or space. We have representation in our union, but not the faculty senate. We begin our work each semester with no orientation, no safety training, no benefits meeting. Some campuses offer a learning day or welcome back night to apprise us of best practices, union news, and student support, but we are not paid for that time, and it is not required. So participation is exceedingly low. Let me make this concern very plain. 75% of faculty at the Connecticut State Community College do not get the basics in training regarding campus safety, procedure, ethics, sexual harassment policy, and basic workplace rights and responsibilities that their full-time colleagues do. Part-time workers in food service and retail have better orientation to their workplaces than we do. How safe are our campuses while this remains the case? Allow me to reiterate my point as a parent of a CT State student. My child can expect that 40% of his courses will be taught by someone like me, who is a dedicated professional and a transient, untrained, under-resourced employee who is treated like a gig worker. Someone with no faculty biography on a website, no mandated office hours, no dedicated office space, and no assurance of work next semester. Why should he work to establish a relationship with any of them? Why should he trust them to keep him safe in a campus emergency? From whom does he get a recommendation from his favorite professor if that professor has been bumped by a full-time faculty member? Connecticut's future depends on strong community colleges, and strong community colleges depend on stable, well-supported faculty and safe campuses. I urge you to support this legislation to ensure that our students receive the high-quality education they deserve. Thank you for your time and commitment to Connecticut's future. I urge you to vote in support of SB 1414.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Are there committee members who have questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. We appreciate your time. Next up is Matthew Keeney. Mr. Keeney, you're listed on my list as both as number 7 and number 36. Fortunately, we passed you over at number 7. You weren't online, so you get to be number 36. You will be followed by Bill Meyerson, who was also skipped over at number 19. But there we go.
Thank you. I really appreciate you all giving me the chance to put my name in there twice, because I really want to express my support for Bill SB 1414. But good afternoon, Senator Slapp, Representative Haddad, and members of the Higher Education and Employment Advancement Committee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today in support of that Bill SB 1414. My name is Matthew Keeney, and I'm an assistant professor of history at CT State Housatonic and a proud member of the 4Cs Union. This is my 3rd year as a full-time faculty member at Housatonic. In that short time, I have seen my class sizes increase, while at the same time, student support services on campus have shrunk. Fewer advisors, fewer tutors, fewer mental health counselors. These vital services then either go unfulfilled or they're shifted onto faculty and staff who are already stretched incredibly thin. The need for additional full-time faculty members has never been greater. Now, this semester I'm teaching 84 students, which is light compared to the load I carried last semester of 124 students. Without robust student services and additional full-time faculty members, it is simply not possible to give that many students the attention they deserve. Proper state funding and the provisions in SB 1414 would allow us to hire more full-time faculty, ensuring that students receive the support they need both inside the classroom and outside the classroom. Our part-time faculty are essential to our colleges. They bring industry experience and decades of teaching expertise, but many of them are forced to piece together multiple teaching jobs just to make a living. And that's something I'm sure you've heard over and over again today. Many of these dedicated educators had been serving our institutions for years without receiving any real investment in their future. SB 1414 would create a pathway for these faculty members to transition into stable full-time positions. It would recognize their commitment, and it would improve educational outcomes for our students. I'd like to quote a recent organizational study that was commissioned by the Connecticut Office of Policy and Management. Our CSCU institutions, quote, provide access to post-secondary education opportunities that offer the widest possible pathway to the middle class for Connecticut residents, end quote. Yet our system continues to rely on an unstable faculty structure with too many part-time educators carrying an overwhelming course load without any job security or benefits. We can and we must do better. SB 1414 is a necessary step toward ensuring a sustainable and equitable faculty workforce at our community colleges. My students show up week after week, overcoming incredible barriers to pursue their education. They work hard to change their futures, and they deserve an institution that invests in the faculty who guide them on that journey. My colleagues and I will continue to be here, ready to help our students grow as scholars and informed citizens. We do this work because we believe in our students and the transformative power of education. Imagine what we could accomplish with a faculty workforce that is adequately supported and resourced. I urge this committee to pass SB 1414 and ensure that our community colleges have the full-time faculty needed to provide the high-quality education that our students deserve. Thank you so much for your time and the multiple chances that I had to testify today. I really appreciate it.
We didn't want to miss your testimony. Thank you very much
Thank you.
for joining us today. We appreciate it. And are there any questions? Seeing none. Thank you very much for joining us. Next up is Bill Meyerson. You have to unmute. It helps us to be able to hear your voice. You're okay.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon, Representative Haddad and Senator Slapp and members of the Higher Education Committee. My name is Bill Meyerson, and I'm an adjunct professor in history at Connecticut Community College at Housatonic in Bridgeport and a member of the Four Seas Union. I believe, being towards the end here, that much of what I want to say has already been covered. So I just want to cover some of the key points here. I'm here to voice my strong support for Senate Bill 1414. That would require a phase-in reduction of the percentage of courses taught by part-time faculty at the Connecticut State Community College for the purpose of encouraging the hiring of additional full-time faculty from our current part-time faculty ranks. That's important because we have learned that, in fact, a full half of community college part-time faculty want to work full-time given the opportunity. Connecticut's use of part-time community college faculty is among the highest in the nation and the highest in the state. This past fall revealed that the full-time to part-time faculty ratio in Connecticut Community College was 25% full-time to 75% part-time. However, part-time faculty teach approximately 41% of course credits offered. This is in stark contrast to our state universities that are capped at 20% adjuncts. And studies show that colleges with more full-time staff have higher student retention and graduation rates. I will skip the rest about the impact of the work-life issues that make it untenable for adjunct faculty and affect student outcomes. But I do want to mention a word about equity. Our community college students are overwhelmingly working class, a majority Black and brown. Many are low income and among the first in their families to attend college. Many come from some of the most marginal communities in our state. Most come to community college as their entry into higher education and a four-year degree. That community college has the highest part-time to full-time ratio in the state and one of the highest in the nation, speaks volumes regarding our state's two-tiered system and, frankly, an inequitable commitment to our students. I urge you to support this legislation to ensure that Connecticut State Community College has the resources to provide quality education and support for all students. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Are there any questions? Seeing none. Thank you very much for offering your perspective. We appreciate your taking the time and hanging in there to offer your testimony with us. That concludes the list of people who registered to speak. And so I will conclude the public hearing. I would just mention for committee members in the public's notice, our next hearing is on Friday at 11 a.m. We'll be hearing a number of interesting bills. I expect a slightly longer day than today, but we appreciate that so many people want to testify us before us on issues of importance. So with that, I'll declare the public hearing adjourned. Thank you. 3 hours, not bad.